welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's mostly weekly podcast, where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have the usual crew. We have Josh Torres.
Kind of weird how taking a week off the podcast feels like an eternity. It's like, whoa, we haven't done this in years.
We have Mikhail Mendani.
Hello.
Adam Vitale.
Remember that short stint of time where we tried doing a monthly podcast? That didn't work too well because it's just too much.
James Galizio.
Imagine if we had to do 6-hour podcasts once a month.
And Chaoman Wu.
You know what they call that? It's called the Game of the Year podcast.
Yeah, we'll have to discuss that soon because it is down the road. It's not too far away. But yep. So obviously this podcast is usually weekly. We did take last week off just for a convergence of different, IRL things. We just decided to take the week off, and it was kind of convenient in terms of the news and schedule. It was an okay week to take off in the middle of August. But as you have already heard, we've been changing a few things on the back end when it comes to the Tetracast. This is just kind of like a set of programming notes. So obviously the intro song this week has changed. We have been using a song from Terranigma, Into the Door or Open the Door. Those are both songs from Terranigma. I forget specifically which one it is. I think it's Open the Door, which is a song, surprisingly, we don't own. So now we have a custom song, composed for us for this podcast. And going forward, that's what we're going to do. We wanted to capture the same vibe that the intro got. So not a huge, significant change, but a kind of a fun one. So you'll hear that at the start of every podcast. We're also changing a few things on the back end for how we, host, upload, and, serve the podcast to the podcast different distribution services. If everything goes right, listeners should not notice a thing. If everything goes wrong, it means we'll have to fix it quickly. So obviously let us know. Either just tweet at us, put it in our Discord, comment on the post for the podcast on the website. Hopefully there should be no noticeable difference at this point. But it's our first time doing it this way in terms of hosting services. So we're going to be learning as we go.
And of course, a big shout out to the artist that Alex, our boss, commissioned for the new podcast intro for it. He did it weeks ago, so I'm forgetting the name of the artist.
They didn't want to be credited. We kind of asked, and they said, "Nah, don't worry about it." But yeah, our boss Alex Donaldson, knew a guy who did it for us.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is something that we commissioned and paid for. So
yes,
yeah. So it is ours. It is our new podcast opening, and then obviously we took last week off, like I already said. So this week we're all going to be catching up on what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks, games we've been playing. And we're looking ahead at things like Gamescom is ramping up. We haven't had the opening night event, but we've had a few things like kind of seep through, like pre-Gamescom events, followed by PAX West, followed by TGS. I believe I have that in the right order. So we're kind of getting into that window of the gaming year, like right before the holiday session. So that's kind of what we're ramping up to. But in terms of mid-August, we've had some very interesting updates to existing games, some of which are quite unique in terms of the situation and the context around those. But in terms of games we've been playing, we're going to be talking about a few things that we've been spending our time with. So I had to do a bit of travel over the last week, part of the reason why we didn't have the podcast. So we were looking at what people had been, playing for this intro section, and I went to a game that released last year that we did cover on the site in terms of like news, but we didn't really cover it in terms of a review preview on the podcast or anything like that. The game is called, well, before I get started, is there anything else that anyone wants to go to for intro, welcome back to the podcast sort of stuff?
Welcome back to the podcast, Brian.
Hello.
Hi.
We're all here. All right, so I'll get going. The game is called Drova Forsaken Kin, which is a little bit of a mouthful, but that's what it's called. So this was an indie RPG that released in October of last year. I believe it's PC only. I actually don't know for sure. As you can tell, I've done my research.
It's on Switch at least for sure, because I have it there as well. I don't know if it's on any other console, or I've forgotten.
So this game released late last year, and ever since its release, we've been covering it on the podcast. So I've seen that headline, Drova Forsaken Kin, released, got an update, a sales milestone. And then I kind of noticed that it was getting a lot of like really good word of mouth. the reviews on Steam were overwhelmingly positive. People were saying like, "Damn, this game has got this game is pretty legit." So I'm like, oh, I need a game that will work well on my Steam Deck. This is a kind of a pixel art top-down RPG, so it's perfect for like that handheld. And obviously, like Mikhail said, it's on Switch.
It's available on all platforms, PlayStation, both generations of PlayStation, Xbox, and it's on everything.
Cool. Yeah, so I was playing it on the Steam Deck, so I'm like, well, at least it's on PC. That's where I played it. But cool, it sounds like it's on everything. So let me kind of tee this up. What this is? This is a pixel art top-down RPG, and I've heard it compared to games like Morrowind, which I haven't played, Gothic, which I haven't played, and a few other things. So to me, it feels a lot more like Elex. So let me tee this up. This is a game. It's a single-player action RPG where you create a player character, and it is open-ended in terms of like there is a story to follow, but once you're plopped into like the map, you can kind of go anywhere. So it's very sandboxy in that way. So first I'll tee up the story premise, because the story premise is pretty light. And then I'll kind of tee up like what does this game play like? Why is it getting such good reviews? What do I think about it? Things like that. So you create like a character that has kind of a mysterious background. Like the player themselves don't really know the history of this character. You create a player character, give them a name, you kind of do some very basic, what do they look like? But it's a pixel art game, so it's kind of like body type A or B, and that's it. And then you're following some druids, and these druids are trying to find the land of Drova, which is the land of legends. And on the way there, you're saying we have to find the divinity. The divinity is some sort of, creature or some sort of entity, some sort of godlike entity that can take you to Drova. You get there, and turns out the divinity is like it's like an ethereal boar. Like imagine like a boar, only it's giant and it's ghosty and it's like a spirit, like think Ganon sort of thing. And within the first 10 minutes of the game, the druids that you're traveling with both perish. You end up in Drova, which is supposedly this land of legends, but it turns out it's kind of in ruins. So it's like, obviously this is kind of a pretty well-worn sort of trope. Like it's been positioned as like this city on a hill with glowing towers of ivory and alabaster or whatever, but really it's kind of in ruins. So you end up there and you're like, what the shit? And then at that point, it's a little bit, it's not completely sandbox, but it's quite sandbox. It's like, welcome to Drova. I hope, you've got a stick and you've got like whatever rags you brought with you. I hope you survive. So it's sort of placed as like this more hardcore RPG in terms of like, this is not a game that makes you, it's not a power fantasy. This is not a stylish game. This is not a game that makes you feel like you're a chosen one. This is a game where it's like, you better stay on the beaten path and you better not go out at night or you're probably going to die. So it's a very like oppressive game in that sense, but it does it through its RPG systems more than through like a super intricate combat system. Because the combat is like, you get a basic attack, you get a heavy attack, you have a very small stamina meter, you have an ability meter that allows you to like swing your axe or your stick or whatever with more force and stun enemies or things like that. So the combat system isn't that intricate, but it's more like it reminds me of the very beginning of like Kingdom Come Deliverance or Elex or I presume Gothic or Morrowind, where you just start out and your character is very, very weak. You can kill like mosquitoes, rats, maybe wolves if you try really hard. But it's like, all right, I need to find my footing. I need to figure out what to do. You end up like the starting area, kind of like the tutorial area, even though it's not framed like that, is you end up at like this woodcutters camp. It's like a group of like 5 to 6 people, and they're woodcutters, and you're like, what is this? I thought Drova was the land of legends. And they're like, well, there are some people that think it can become that, but it's not. It hasn't been that for quite some time. You quickly learn about like the lay of the land, the different factions in it, the different people that have power in this place. And at that point, you're kind of like, well, the 2 factions are called the Remnants and Nemeton. Nemeton's like the name of a city. Those are the main 2 factions. And basically, you're like, these guys are fighting each other. They have different viewpoints about like how the world should be like ruled. Who should own power, how civilization should be structured. And at that point, you're like, well, you can go west to the Remnants, or you can head south to Nemeton. But you can kind of do what you want. Like no one's really telling you what to do. So of course, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go off the beaten path and go out at night and go every place they're not telling you to go. And so basically, as I've been playing this game, I've been dying a lot, but kind of by my own choice because I am not like trying to be safe. I'm trying to be like, I don't mind, like, oh, here's something that I am probably not nearly strong enough to fight yet, but I'm going to try anyway. Like, that's the sort of mindset I've gone into this game. So I've seen the game over screen a hell of a lot. But this game, like, if that's something you don't like, I'm also playing it on the normal difficulty. There are difficulty levels. There's even like an Iron Man mode, so you can play it where you have like one save file, and if you lose it, you lose it, sort of thing. But I've been playing on normal because I kind of wanted that experience. And that's kind of like the vibe of the game, where it's just like there are ruins dotted around, there's creatures everywhere. As you encounter characters, they'll have basic quests for you, like, hey, I need you to kill the head of the wolf pack lives south of here, and they've been terrorizing our flock. Let's see if you can find them, and I'll give you some new daggers if you kill it. Or there's a bunch of blood flies, which are like a type of mosquito. They have nests all over this farm. If you can find them, I'll give you like 100 gold or whatever. And those are the sorts of quests. Like, the quest design isn't super intricate, but the way that the game kind of makes up for it is that you have a journal, but there are no like waypoints on your map. There's no golden path to follow. They just kind of say like the wolf lives south of here in a cave, or the mosquito nests are in the marsh to the northeast. And then you do eventually get maps, but you don't start with them. You start out with a map that's like literally someone's crude drawing. It's called crude map. And then eventually you can buy like, here's a map of the cave system, here's a map of the forest, here's a map of the marsh. And it's very diegetic in that way, where you don't just have like, oh, I know where everything is. You kind of have to like find people who are cartographers who will actually be able to like give you the map that you can then pull up in your menu and reference. I think the reason why this game is being received pretty well is that it rewards all of those like RPG mindsets of like, if you talk to people, if you learn, like, every single NPC, well, not every single, I'll say like 80% of the NPCs in this game have a name, they have a role. Like, these people are the guards of the woodcutter camp. The head of the woodcutter camp is this. The farmer is this guy's name. These two people are traders. They live west of here, and they all have different names. They all have kind of different schedules. And it's the sort of things where, as you talk to them, having a good memory, like literally the player, if you've got a good short-term memory, it actually really helps in this game, because you're like, oh, I remember that character. They're the trader that lives west of here. Oh, they say that this person went missing. I saw them north of here at, outside of this campfire. And it's the sort of thing where like the game doesn't like, it's the sort of game where if you have a notebook or like a notepad or whatever, like it actually could be pretty helpful. Or you can look it up, but I've been trying like not to do that. Also, the map is like incredibly dense. It reminds me of kind of like Avowed, in terms of like the map is not that huge. The map is not like this giant thing that takes ages and ages and ages to get over. But it's the sort of thing where if you're not being careful, you could like walk right past a lake or a cave or something that has like a little bit of something to find there, whether it's like a skeleton that has a good set of armor on it, or a cave that has a bear inside of it that's guarding a treasure, or things like that. Where I'll walk through an area 2 or 3 times, going back and forth, doing quests, and then I'll realize, oh, there's a slightly little out of the way little nook here that I never like saw before. And then you go there and like, oh wow, this was hiding back here. I never found this before. And that even interfaces with the quest design a little bit. So there was one early quest where you're going to this place that is basically a mine. It's a silver mine and I'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of like the world space later. And on the way to the mine, you meet some raiders, and they're basically like, hey, you got to pay the toll to pass. And at this point, you are too fucking weak to fight them. And that's kind of what I enjoyed about this game, where it's like, well, at this point, I have to pay the toll. Like, I really don't have a choice. And like you do, and you kind of feel like a little shit for it, but you're like, I am not strong enough. I am not the chosen one. I am not, God protagonist. I kind of just, that's the rule of the world, and I got to pay the fine. And now I went through. But then later, this is like the whole progression thing, is that you eventually like, you know what? Now I'm strong enough to fight these guys. I'm going to show them what for. And you fight them and they run off. And then like, I thought that was it. Like, okay, I fought them. I no longer have to pay the toll. I'm a little bit stronger now. And then as I was doing another quest, I found this little nook, like, oh, I never went this way. Let me find out what's over here. And I found their camp. And they're like, yeah, you kind of gave us a beating. We're not going to collect tolls anymore. And you realize they have like a sick sister. They were collecting tolls to try to get medicine for their sister. And it's a sort of thing where it's like, well, you're going about that the wrong way, but whatever. And then you can choose either to not help them because they're assholes, or help them because you empathize with their plight. It's an RPG. You can do what you want, and it's the sort of thing where it's like, I came across like those two events, paying the toll versus finally being strong enough to fight them and not have to pay the toll, versus finally finding their camp and finding a little quest line that tethered off of that. Each of those things was like 5 hours apart. Like this isn't something that all happened within an hour. And then imagine like having a bunch of different quests like that. They kind of you meet a character for the first time, they show up later and you're like, oh, I remember this person. Or sometimes you don't remember, like, I know I got to remember this guy, but I don't remember where I first saw him or what I was doing with him. Maybe I wish I took better notes or I had a better memory. So I think that's the sort of vibe that this game is really being championed for, in terms of just like having a strong set of a small cast of characters, but every single one has like something tethered to them. Not necessarily a quest for all of them, but they might be related to another character. They might be able to train you in different skills. They might be able to sell you something, things like that. The other thing that I think this game is good at is that the world is not. This is not a glamorous game, and I think by design. Like, out of the factions that you can choose to join, one of them are the remnants, and they're basically slavers. And they're like, well, I don't want to join them unless you want that roleplay fantasy, like you could. But like they're not good people. Like if I join them, I don't want to like sign off on this. But if you don't, you're going to be a step down. Like they have resources and armor and things that you'd want to have in order for you to survive in this world. Then there's the other faction, Nemeton, which is like a city on a hill. But the more you like talk about them or like interface with them, you realize they're kind of like the Brotherhood of Steel and Fallout, where they're very regimented, leaning into fascism in terms of like, know your place. These are the rules. If you don't follow the rules, you'll be executed at worst or exiled at best, sort of thing. Where it's just like, my word is law. And you're like, well, that's maybe a little better than the slavers, but maybe not. But also they have the resources I need to survive in this world too. So that's the sort of world that you're put in. I guess any questions so far? Like, I hope I'm kind of teeing up the situation.
This reminds me of your Wasteland 3 review in a sense. One of your lines from that review that's kind of stuck with me is that it's a world of concessions and acceptable losses, and it kind of feels like that.
Yeah, there's like no like, oh, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. And that's the RPGs in general, writing in general. There's a lot of games that do that pretty well. I'm just saying that this is another one of those where there is no like Jedi Order versus Sith here. It's like, the remnants are more like individualistic, but as part of that, they say people that are weak go to the mines and they're basically slaves. And then Nemeton is like, well, we don't have slaves, but also like, if you don't follow the law, we're going to exile you or like chain you up on a rock in the middle of town to be, mocked and pilloried. It's like, well, that's not great either. In terms of like the main story, what you find is a bunch of like old ruins. And the ruins, I've played about 30 hours of the game. I think I'm in the back stretch. I haven't beaten it yet, which is fine, because once I do get the revelations, I probably wouldn't want to share them on a podcast anyway. Is that there's these old ruins. They call them the Bygones, Bygones. The Bygones. They're like they were built before here. They had like huge statues, huge temples, but they're gone now. They're in ruins. But why is that? Why are the Bygones gone? And it's like, if they were so great, if they have all of these like artifacts and relics, what happened to them? And then one sort of thing that's been really spooky, that's really cool set dressing, is that as you go to the edges of the map, there's like this magical fog that you can like wade into, but it hurts you. Like, it's basically like a soft boundary. Like, you can't go here. It's the edge of the map. There's a magical fog. It will kill you if you wander into it. And in that fog, you see like human ghosts like wandering around, and you're like, what the hell are these ghosts? And I'll as I speak into the microphone now, I don't know the answer to that. Are they the Bygones? Are they what got rid of the Bygones? I don't know. So it's like, what in the world is Drova? The divinity, again, this ethereal boar god thing took me here. Drova is a land of like ruins where the remnants of civilization that are there are just barely getting by. The Bygones, which had this big, powerful civilization, are no longer here, and now there's like this mysterious fog on the boundaries that you cannot wander into. So there's like a lot of like questions that the way that the game frames them are intriguing, and you find notes, you find like records from the past. There's like these, I'm almost wondering if it's like remember Xenoblade 3, you find those statues of the founders and you have no idea like who they are. Eventually you learn who they are. I get a similar vibe here where like I don't know if these are humans that created civilization and now they're being revered as kind of like these godlike creatures. I don't know how the boar interfaces with it. So it's a compelling story, even though it's story light, which I think is really good. There's not a lot of like monologue. There's not a lot of exposition. But it's also not quite Souls like either, where it's not like everything is buried away in item descriptions or like lore dumps. There's just enough through the quests, through interacting with the characters, through a few little lore bits that you get in like letters and notes and ruins and things like that to make you interested in exploring. But the exploration is pretty combat heavy. So like it's the sort of game where if you do like having a strong narrative pathway pull you forward towards the finish line, it doesn't quite have that. But it's not quite sandboxy either. I think it balances those two kind of different gameplay styles very, very well.
That's pretty impressive
and then,
for like the scope of game. Like there's not a lavish super big AAA production or anything. This is
this is as far as I can tell. Like I try to do a little bit of research. It's I hope I get this right. It's published by Deck 13, which did like the Surge games. It's made by a studio called Just 2D, JUST 2D, Just 2D, which, as far as I can tell, is a German studio with like 6 primary developers. Like one person did all the art, one person did all the story.
Wow.
I believe this is like it's either their debut game or if it's like their first big global release game. And the thing is I don't want to fall into the trap, like the discussion around like indie games where there's a core studio, they might have outsourced parts to QA or composition or things like that. So I'm going to say the core team is small. I haven't reached the credits. I don't know like what other external studios they've worked with to like what's the total number of developers. I don't know, but the core team is small in German. And there's a few translation things. Like obviously I'm playing it in English. There's no voice acting. Well, there's no real voice acting. It's like Zelda like where you'll hear people like chirp or laugh or things like that. Yeah, grunt. And there's some translations that feel a little stilted because I presume it was originally written in German and then translated to English. For instance, if you find a skill trainer and they want like, hey, Mr. Remnant Captain, I want you to train me in axes. They'll be like, I only train people from who are remnants. But instead of saying I only train remnants, they say I train only remnants. Which is like, that's not wrong, but it's kind of weird. It's kind of stilted. And that's the best example I can come off the top of my head, where it's like, it's not bad. It's not like this grammar makes no sense. It's just like, oh, that's a weird way to phrase that. Which kind of just, to me, I'm just like, I'm fine with that. It kind of adds to the vibe that I don't know what this world is. These people, I don't know if they've always lived here or if they were transported here long ago and they're like third generation people that have lived in this kind of weird place. My prediction right now is that Drova is kind of like a purgatory. It's kind of like a world between worlds sort of thing, but I have no idea. And that's kind of part of the fun of it. There's a lot of like, there's shrines dotted around, there's ruins dotted around. You eventually find like secret organizations that want to collect relics. The more relics you get for them, they either give you options to train or they give you new armor or weapons. It's got a good economy in terms of like you don't have enough gold to buy everything. So the resources that you do have, you kind of got to be like choosy. And I always think that's a very hard balance to hit. Either you feel so poor that you never want to spend money, or you're so rich that you just buy everything and it's no longer a gameplay mechanic. This game does a good balance where you have enough money to kind of just choose a build, choose how you want to play the game. Do I want to spend my money on better weapons or do I want to spend my money on being able to build traps or armor or things like that?
Yeah, you not to get too into the weeds on like on this question that I'm gonna ask, but like because I know you've spoken a lot about like a lot about the game, but in terms of like the moment by moment gameplay, like you mentioned builds, like what is the sort of like cadence of the combat system? Is it sort of like that Souls like you have like a stamina meter and sort of like what's like the build situation is it like as robust as like a Diablo or Path of Exile, or is it kind of more grounded than what you can get there?
It's definitely more grounded. It's slower paced. Like the game more focuses on like attrition in terms rather than moment to moment like combat. Okay. There are, I believe, 4 different weapons. There's swords. It's sword and shield, though you don't have to equip a shield. There's two-handed axe, which is what I'm doing. there's daggers, then there's like slingshots or bows. And the way that the game works is that you get learning points when you level up that you can kind of specialize into these. And it's the sort of game where you do kind of have to specialize. Like you only get enough learning points that you can't become good at both swords and axes. And I don't think there's a lot of incentive to try to be like a jack of all trades. Though there are ways to reset your skill points, so it's not like you have to make the choice and it's your choice for life. Like, oh, I can reset my skill points, and I tried axe, I didn't like it, so now I'm going to try daggers. But you have to pick one or the other at any given moment. And then in terms of the combat, to answer your question more directly, it's more attrition. And but what I mean by that is you go out into the world, you find some ruins, or you find a forest, and there's a bunch of wolves, or there, early on in the game, there's like mosquitoes, wolves, warthogs, and then later there's like bears, leshen, like. I always associate Leshen with like Witcher 3, but it's like a Celtic beast, like it's like the druid with like the skull mask of like a moose, I believe is what it typically is. The Leshens and like Draugrs and things like that. And it's like, all right, I can take these guys on, not because I'm super excellent at combat, but because I have enough healing potions, I have some traps, I have some poison daggers I can throw at them. I prepared my resources for this excursion sort of thing. And then there is skill involved. Like if you are good at dodging enemy attacks, and the dodge is like your character will like it's a top-down game, right? Your character will shift slightly left, right, or whatever direction you pick with a small invincibility frame. But you can't dodge that many times in a row. But if you do dodge with good timing, it means you'll be able to use fewer potions or things like that. But I also appreciate a game that, like, if you have like bear traps, like you go through the effort of mining some iron and getting some like consumable crafting resources, crafting some traps, getting them in your inventory, and then slotting them in, and then taking the time to use them. I like games that reward that sort of like, I've prepared for this, I'm ready, because like you put in a bear trap and it holds the enemies in place for like 5 seconds, it makes them start bleeding, which is like a good dot ability, and then as they're stuck in place, I'm gonna take my axe out and swing at them a few times, which is a lot easier than deciding not to prepare, only going in with your axe and being like, now I got to dodge their attacks. It's going to take longer. They're going to whittle my health down more. I'm going to have to use more healing potions, which means I have to go get more of those prepared. So it's the sort of thing it's a sort of game that rewards preparation, but you don't have to do it. So that's the sort of vibe it is. It's very.
I imagine it becomes more important. I imagine higher difficulties. It's sort of like when you're playing Witcher and Witcher 2 on like normal versus like the harder difficulties, where the alchemy becomes way more important and on those higher difficulties.
Yeah, so there's as one decent example of that, like early in the game you find some bear caves, and bears are gonna wreck your shit early on. They are very tough. But there's an achievement to kill a bear in the first chapter. So like I'm like, let me try to do that. And then I was like, man, the bear's attacks are pretty well telegraphed. So it's the sort of thing where the more you practice, you can get good at dodging his attacks. But also I'm like, I'm going to lay down these, like, they're not called caltrops. Basically, caltrops, like the ninja spikes they put on the floor that enemies will bleed as they like walk over them. You can do that. So I'm like, I'm going to put down some of these, get the bear to run over them, and then like have that do the majority of their damage while I get a few chip shots in. So, and that actually like was my technique for killing the bear in Act 1, is just basically make it bleed and then like dodge like hell to let it bleed out, which still took a while, and I still had to practice, and I still died a few times. But that's like an example of like, all right, here's a hard encounter. It's not like a story boss encounter, but I'm kind of treating it as such, because I could have avoided that cave and come back 20 hours later and probably not bothered, and then just been like, my armor is strong enough, my axe is strong enough now that I can more fight it straight up. But I wanted to take it on early, or I find a Leshen in a druid grove, and I'm like, all right, let me try to take this on, even though I'm sure I could come back when I'm stronger. So the game is kind of as hard as you want to make it, which does kind of give me like those Elex vibes, and hopefully when I play the Gothic remake when it comes out, similar vibes there, where it's like you could always choose to come back later, and you will get stronger as you go through the story.
First of all, you kind of implied this, but I want to say it explicitly. Gothic, the original Gothic, was made by Piranha Bytes, and Elex, which you have played, was made by Piranha Bytes. So that's why it feels like people say this feels like Gothic, and you say it feels like Elex. Well, Gothic and Elex has that.
Yeah, that's just where I'm coming from.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Two, we were talking about the development team, and I was just looking into this a little bit because I remember reading up about it. I know Germany has funding available for developers in Germany. And I know there are obviously like stipulations on how much they can fund and whatnot. But I guess it's like the Ministry of Economic Affairs can fund up to 50% of a game's development costs, as long as that studio is like based in Germany and as long as it has like a German language, which I checked, Drova does, like you can play it in German. And, things like that. It's all a part of an initiative to, have a burgeoning development scene in the country, right? If you can have developers grow there, make games there, sell games there, you can maybe grow, become a bigger employer, and contribute to the economy and all of the more broader macro scale things. Crosscode is probably a bigger example or a more well-known example of a game that is developed in Germany, and I don't know this for sure, but I think also benefited from the funding initiatives that the government has there, and that was also published by Deck 13, which is a German publisher, of course. So that's basically, again, very brief research on my part in terms of like the rundown of this development of this game. It's an indie studio taking advantage of the initiatives by the German government to develop a game there with their help. And it seems like it's been a success. I've heard about, everything I've heard about this game, including what you've said this podcast, is pretty positive. I want to play it at some point. It's just a matter of time, really.
Same. And one thing that exemplifies, like, the game isn't truly sandbox, but it has some sandbox tendencies. And the example for that I gave is, you have to choose to join those bandits I talked about, or the Nemeton, like the Brotherhood of Steel near fascist group. You have to choose one. But basically, I was trying to explore as much of the world as I could before I made that choice, because I didn't want to like lock myself out of anything. And I did enough exploring of the world that after I made my choice, I skipped an act of the story. Like, literally, I went from chapter 1 to chapter 3. Basically, they're like, we need you to do this. I'm like, oh, I've already done that. I did that on my own without guidance as I just randomly explored. And they're like, oh, neat. It's a little bit more than that. I'm playing it up a little bit here. But basically, like, if you obviously, depending on how much you want spoiled or whatever, if you Google like Drova skip act 2, you'll read a lot. Like, people are like, what the shit? You can just do that? Like, yeah, you can do that. And there's some pros and some cons to it. Like, if you skip the act, like, I didn't mean to do this, but I guess the way I approach the game, that's what happened. So now I'm going to live with it. So the game allows you to like explore most of the map on your own pace. Like, you don't have to wait for the story to like unlock gates. There's a few places they do, but for most of the map, that's true. But as you go through each act, like, you'll be encouraged to go to different areas of the map. So I kind of like, all right, I've explored the map, but now I'm going to have the story like carry me to each place and do the story events in each area or things like that. One other gameplay thing that is kind of a neat decision that I wasn't sure I understood at first, but I actually really enjoyed it, is as you go across the map and you find like all the different enemy types, from rats to draugrs to harpies or whatever, as you kill them, they don't respawn. Like 90% of them don't respawn, which is nice because it feels like, all right, I've cleared out this area of the forest. Now I can travel through this shortcut whenever. And I don't have to worry about like, oh, the enemies respawn, I have to take them out again. Oh, it's going to take up more of my resources, things like that. It makes the game feel very gamey. Like, it's not supposed to be like immersive, like, oh, this feels like a real living world. It's like, no, it feels kind of fake, but I actually kind of enjoy it. I will say, as the acts roll through, some enemies respawn, but very few, like less than 10%. And it's also kind of nice because when I'm exploring an area and I see an area where there's enemies still around, I'm like, oh, I've never been here before. Let me explore this place. So it's a decision that I think I agree with. The fact that enemies don't respawn. It means that like once you clear an area and you go through all of your resources or traps or heals or whatever, you get to like benefit from that. Like, oh, now this area is safe. Like, now this area I can use, or I can forage, or I can do whatever here. And I no longer have to worry about being on my toes or keeping my health up or things like that. Also, the perspective, the top-down perspective, what it means is, think of like a 2D Zelda game where it's not 100% top-down like a helicopter. It's at an angle, right? It's not quite isometric, but you're looking at like a character, and you can see like you're seeing like what's in front of them, what's behind them, and buildings or trees or ruins that are tall are naturally obscuring whatever's behind them. I'm trying to paint this picture in an audio podcast, and the game uses that a lot in terms of like once you go under a tent or behind a ruin or behind a building, the game will like think of Baldur's Gate 3. It'll like or Divinity Original Sin 2. It'll allow you to see what your character is doing behind there. Like the camera will open up and show that, and the game uses that impeccably to like hide like loot stashes or cave entrances or chests or things like that. So there's been times where I'm re-exploring an area. I'm like, wait a minute, that tree or that ruin or that pillar looks suspicious. I bet there's something behind it. And then I'll go behind it and I'm like, yep, there is. And that's also really rewarding for exploration. So I don't know how this game does it, where you feel like you go through an area 2 or 3 times, and then the 4th time through it, you find something you missed the first time. I'm like, am I just that inobservant? Like, no, I think it's just like they designed the world design really well in terms of like making it fun to explore, even if you've already been to an area a few times. Naturally, that doesn't happen every time. Like you do sometimes have to backtrack. You do eventually unlock like fast travel. The fast travel in this game is you help some merchants, and then the merchants are like, "Hey, we're headed to the remnants. You want to tag along?" And you're like, "Sure," and then it takes you there. So the fast travel is diegetic in that way. You don't just like choose a place on a map and pop there. So that felt fun to unlock. But yeah, I'm excited to play through this game. Hopefully clear it up like before the end of the month, before the September releases come out. But I definitely see where why the game has gotten positive word of mouth, especially from like kind of the sandboxy Western RPG fans. So
yeah, it sounds really interesting. It seems like the praise that it's gotten is like well deserved based on what you've been talking about.
Yeah, you do have to enjoy struggling a little bit. Like you're not going to feel super powerful most of the time. You're going to feel like
Adam love the struggle in RPGs.
There you go. Yeah. You are the opposite of a Gary Stu in this game, or Mary Stu, or whatever. You are a piece of shit until you prove yourself otherwise. But yeah, Drova Forsaken Kin. I've been playing it on PC. Apparently, it's available on all the consoles. So thanks to Mikhail for catching that. But and it's been a perfect game to play like on plane rides or things like that, or in longer Ubers on my Steam Deck. So it fits that portable. I've been playing it with both keyboard and controller, and they both work pretty well. And I've been enjoying it a lot. So I'm glad there was a window here in the year to kind of revisit it. And I'll probably write something for the site once I'm done with it. But you get a preview of my opinion here on the podcast. So that's the game that I had listed kind of not a lot of big releases over the last few weeks in this month. We've kind of talked about that a few times. So it's been a good month to catch up on backlogs or other little things. So I'm looking at our little outline here, and a few other people like Josh and I believe Mikhail have played a few indies, or as Josh has put it here, some dumb shit. So we have a few other things that we'll kind of just poke in here in terms of games we've been playing over the last 2 weeks as we've had a break from the podcast, and then we'll go into the news. So Josh, some dumb shit. That's your warning, not mine.
Yeah, I did. I did put this segment as my dumb shit here. So recently, I don't know what it is about this. Like I kind of just been kind of chilling out this month. I didn't want to like put too much time investment in a lot of stuff. Like officially on the site, I've been playing David Ex Machina Titanic Scion, but I can only talk about it in a preview capacity. I was like, you know what? I'll just wait till I can fully talk about that game instead of talking about it in the preview capacity. I wrote some initial thoughts up on my Blue Sky on that, like a few weeks back. But I'll definitely have more to say about it when I can talk about the full game on that. Until then, I've kind of been. Last time we were here, I was talking about Eartheon, and that's been a blast. Going through that, just like going through runs of that, and here and there. That's been a blast. I need to get started on DigiGuide and Ragebound. I haven't yet. I don't want to like commit too hard on like any new thing yet because I have to go to PAX West later this month, and I've been busy booking stuff for that. So I have a lot of cool stuff to check out there and report back on that. And there's gonna be a lot of like big releases at the end of the month as well that I've been kind of gearing up for. It's like a really backloaded month, especially at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So, in the meantime, just last time we were on the podcast, we were talking about like, hey, the Fate Hollow Ataraxia Remastered got a release date. It released. I started it like on the weekend after it released because I was finishing up Fate Stay Night Remastered, because Hollow Ataraxia's a direct sequel to that, like a direct follow up, but it's like kind of like an unconventional sequel in the sense that like it does take place about half a year after the events of Fate Stay Night, but the exact ending that it follows up on is like it's both nothing and everything in terms of like there's technically 5 main endings to Fate Stay Night, where 2 of the routes, Unlimited Blade Works and Heavens, you'll have a normal end and true end, while the Fate route just has that one ending to it. And Hollow Ataraxia kind of exists in this weird form where like it doesn't directly follow up from any of the endings of that game, but it references info that you learn in each specific route in that game. Where because in Hollow Ataraxia, you're the 2 main characters are new to the game, where you have Bazette, who is technically someone that should have appeared in Fate Stay Night, but kind of something happened to them off screen prior to the main events of it. And Karen is another main character in Hollow Ataraxia that's introduced, and she's kind of like the new church overseer, which previously Kire from Fate Stay Night like occupied that position. And there's some weird things happening, let's say, like with the causality of time in Hollow Ataraxia, where you get introduced to these characters, but you'll feel like they aren't the main characters, because a lot of like the first part of that game is going through loops of the setting of Fate Stay Night half a year later. So and what I mean by that is a lot of the first part of Hollow Ataraxia is you're playing as the main character again of Fate Stay Night, but it's unlike Fate Stay Night, which happens in a linear pattern where you go through that main story. Sometimes there's a branching decisions that leads you to a bad end to it, but for the most part, you're on a linear storyline. You see it from the beginning, and you go all the way to the end, and then you get the ending that you get, and you can like kind of go back to a branching path choice where you can go be set on the path like the normal end or true end that you didn't get. But the story as it's laid out has happening linearly. In Fate Hollow Ataraxia, it's very different from that. A lot of it is very day-to-day events where you actually have like a map screen on it, which you never had at Fate Stay Night, and you are picking events on that map screen that either have a tag that's called new or exclamation or an exclamation point by it. The new the locations that are tagged new are like side events that think of them as like optional side events that like it's like you're hanging out with someone in that town that you were introduced to in Fate Stay Night, and like and this game is like way more laid back and casual, almost slice of life in that aspect, where the servants that you summoned in Fate Stay Night, usually at the most of those endings they're gone, but in this one for some reason they exist in this timeline in Hollow Ataraxia where all those servants remained half a year later and are just like kind of living out their lives alongside you. There's no Holy Grail war happening, so there's no reason for them to fight each other. So they're just kind of all chilling out, basically. And so you get to like have fun interactions with them with none of like the life or death stakes of the Holy Grail war from Fate Stay Night. So you get to see new aspects about these characters, both the servants that were used to be antagonistic to you, and also the side characters that barely got any screen time because they weren't the main focus, part of the main cast in that life or death Holy Grail war. And the one of the big taglines of Fate Hollow Ataraxia, like in the store page description, is like relive the 4 fates of destiny or the 4 days of destiny, and that's kind of what happens on these loops. Is as you're living out these days, they have like a morning cycle, like an afternoon cycle, and a night cycle, and like every time you like pick a whether it's the side events or like the exclamation point events, which are kind of like the quote unquote main events to quote unquote advance the story forward. You are going to the next part of that day after you see these events, and by the night of the fourth day, if you make it there, something happens and you are sent to like a bad end, and you re-loop back to the morning of the first day. And this is by design. This is all deliberate and by design. Like this is unlike Fate Stay Night, where like the bad ends are optional. You don't have to see any of those if you know which choices you're doing. And this one, the bad ends are sort of integral to the main plot of this game. So you getting bad ends is by design in this game, and you're learning more and more bits about this really mysterious and enigmatic story of why you're living out these events in a loop throughout these 4 days through the eyes of the main character of Fate Stay Night. So like you and those little exclamation point events, some of them have triggers to them. So let's say you explored these 4 locales at the night of the at night, and then after you explore these 4 locales and nothing's happening, you go across the bridge into another section of town. But as you're crossing that section of town, a character shoots you and kills you right then and there, triggering a bad end. But you also get a trigger that you'll need to advance the story forward. So you're actually getting like almost like story triggers and accumulating them, and these story triggers unlock new parts of the main plot that you'll encounter in another loop of that story. So this game is very, very, very a large departure from Fate Stay Night, and that's kind of what I love about it. It's like it's so avant-garde in the way that like what you think conventional visual novel storytelling should be, for the most part. And I'm very like I've read this game once, but I've never done any replays of this game, so a lot of my memories are fuzzy about it. So like I'm very curious to see how they how they piece things together again, because a lot of it is fuzzy in my mind based on what I read like years ago on it. But it's like a really, really cool evolution of Fate Stay Night, because if you go from this game as after from Fate Stay Night, you kind of get more appreciation about like how much stuff was added to this game. Like every single character has like multiple outfits, new expressions, especially from the ones that you don't see much of in Fate Stay Night. You'll see like entirely new artwork of even like Shiro's like residence, his household. There's like different backgrounds altogether that you never saw in Fate Stay Night that's been added onto this game. And that's like a central location for both of these games, and where story events unfold and stuff like that. And of course, the map screen, and you get to kind of have like more of a free exploration mechanic as you're given choices of like what scene you want to see next. On top of that, it's a very like such an interesting evolution of that style. That's like it's way more non-linear.
I just have a question,
Yeah.
just as someone who has not played these and is
Yeah.
trying to piece it together in
Sure.
my mind. When you talk about it looping, and then as you loop, you get the triggers that allow you to like you run into these bad ends, and then as you loop past them, you eventually progress them as you experience them. Is this something that's like diegetic to the game? Like, does you're still playing from the perspective of Shiro, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Shiro.
Yeah.
Is he realizing the loops, or is it more like the player is realizing omniscient to the character, or is he realizing as well?
Shiro doesn't realize it. But the player is witnessing it, and like you're of course after like the first 2 or 3 times, like it'll show you like, hey, it's the like it'll go to a screen. It's like okay, after like you say die, go to bed, and it'll immediately go to a script like day 1, and then like the title of that day. It's like a very whimsical musical jingle that goes onto that, and then it's like and it plays it off as if nothing happened, and you're just kind of going into like a new day, and Shiro himself doesn't know that it's looping, but the player of course knows that something is happening, and there are minor teases and hints that like kind of start trying to piece together the entire truth. Like say there's this one loop that I went through where I got through the 4 days just fine, and like Shiro didn't die. But then like the scene that occurs is like, oh, like the days of the Holy Grail were over, like peaceful days remain, and then something, and then like, but this hollow paradise still remains, and then it loops back to the first day as if like nothing happened, so obviously something is happening, and you're not exactly you don't have enough info at this point to really piece together everything because you just lack info at this time. But a lot of this first phase of the game is like information gathering before the story advances forward. Like there's something that happens at the night of the 4th day that is causing that is causing this reset. Like there's like these new elements introduced in Hollow Ataraxia that's like causing this reset, and you're not exactly sure what it is. So like it's such like a real like I really love unconventional storytelling like this, where it's just like it's like it kind of betrays your preconceived expectations of like what should make sense to you. So it's such a real like I love this game, and I can't wait to like kind of re-experience like how the official Western release handles a lot of it in that aspect. The aside from that, there's also a demo for Super Robot Wars Y that came out on Nintendo Switch and PS5. So I dabbled. I told myself I just like I shouldn't do this because I'm gonna play it on. I'm gonna try to play it on PC anyway, and this demo supports like save transfer into the full game. Like I'm not planning to play this on console unless like we get code and it's like for console only and whatever. But who knows? Um, but I was like, I just want maybe just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. I'm very curious. So I gave into my temptation and uh played the very start of it, like the first stage, to see the story set up and the first stage of it, and whatnot. And it's like it's really weird because the story setup is as most other crossover SRW games, where it's like a lot of the world setting is um built upon like the crossover series that involves. So this one, the main focus is at the very beginning, like the very end of the season 2 of Code Geass, where the Zero Requiem happened. And I once, anyone who watches Stone knows what happens, but this game kind of goes big, goes into it, and then what the other characters, some of the other characters respond in this Zero Requiem sequence, and it kind of gives the world setting of like, okay, here's what like the storylines of some of these series already happened. Like the main plots of like Zeta Gundam and I think Seed Destiny and like 2 other series already happened. Like of course Code Geass already happened, and you're kind of seeing the fallout of things, and then establishes like original characters and whatnot, where they fit into this. And of course the first stage is very original character centric because you have your main characters. In this one you can choose like these from these 2 ninjas. Like there's like this Do Ninja, and then there's this other girl who's also from this organization. It's actually called Ninja, like NINJA, and it does stand for something. It's like absurd. um um but I was kind of getting a feel of like, okay, here's like the central plot setup, and here's like how they introduce like these main characters and so forth. And the main thing I was interested in is like is this new UI that they've been introduced. Like, hey, they're on Unity Engine now, and they've kind of revised a lot of the UI to be cleaner, to users, but also in the process of being cleaner, it's very minimalistic, which has some pros and cons, in my opinion, on that. But it's just like a lot of like legacy menus getting touch ups that like it kind of throws me off guard. For example, when you're choosing an attack for your giant robot to attack enemies with, in in older SRW titles, prior to this, you'd always have a dedicated like weapons list that takes up the entire screen, full screen to you select and then you choose the target you want to hit it with. Well, now in this game, that doesn't take up the whole entire screen. It takes up maybe like two-thirds of the entire screen, but you can still see like the units on the field as you're selecting weapons. It's almost like a transparent screen almost overlaid on top of the screen. So it's not like taking up the entire full screen when you're selecting weapons, and then when you select them, you can select your target. Same thing when you're activating like buffs on your character, like that used to take the whole full screen. Now that's like an overlay on top of the existing like field screen. Just small stuff like that. Like for many people, it's like, oh, okay, that's cool that like the layout's like this, but like for obviously for people who are like who've played through many of these games, it's like, oh my god, like even small UI things like that like fuck me up. I'm like, oh, where am I? I feel like I'm in like a different dimension when I'm playing this game almost. So, but like I'm interested. I'm hoping even though this like I've said it many times, even though I think the series list for this entry is on the safer side, I'm interested to know where it goes. How they integrate like the storylines together. I think one of the cool things about this game that establishes up front is they have CG screens, like full artwork CG screens that have all been made just for this game. They're not like screen caps from the original anime from these series. Like there's actually like distinct CG screens that were made just for this game. But they only involve the characters within their series. So like if it's from Getter Arc, for example, it only shows those characters so far within the same series in that CG. So I'm hoping they have CG art for moments that have crossover characters, and they actually have like CG artwork that shows like, hey, a character from Code Geass and a character from Shark's Counterattack and a character from Getter Arc in the same CG screen, because there's like a special impactful moment happening, and there's these characters from these three series all interacting with each other and talking about it, and then hopefully there's like a distinct CG artwork on that shows those characters. Like I think that'd be really cool having those crossover CG moments on that. So I hope that's the case. I don't know if that's the case, if that'll be in the full game, but it's always going to be like a weird thing because every there's various agencies involved with these games. They have like their own licensing contracts, and that gets kind of starts getting even more complicated when you're releasing it worldwide simultaneously, because you might have different negotiations and licensing contracts within different territories around the world. So it's just there's pros and cons to all of this, of like the worldwide simultaneous nature of SRW now, which kind of lingers in my mind, but it's too early to say whether that's a good or bad thing yet in the grand scheme of things. But that kind of leads me into like the actual other thing that I've been playing is like, besides Fate Hollow Ataraxia, I've started because of the SRW demo, I've kind of started replaying older SRW games, not because like I'm super nostalgic and like I don't agree with what Y is doing. Like sure, there are pros and cons to like what modern SRW presentation is like, but I kind of got a little bit of an itch now, a nostalgic itch for older SRW games. So I've started replaying like the first original generation game on PS2.
Before you get into that, it looks like Mikhail might have had a comment.
Oh, sorry, I haven't been
no worries
looking at the chat at all. So yeah, go for it. If you
so few questions actually. So
yeah,
before this, Super Robot was the only game in the series which released worldwide. That's correct, right?
Yeah, that was the first.
And that was a PC only release thing.
Yeah, for worldwide. Yeah, I think that picked the consoles in other territories, but for the official worldwide simultaneous, it was PC only.
And this is the game where they, if you used like print screen or F12, they blacked out the screenshots, right?
I think that's the case for like official capture. I mean, I use my own custom capture, so I don't have to deal with any of those restrictions because I have a capture card for me. But I know they do have some like weird restrictions because of the licenses involved, where like you can do direct capture, but it has like a big like logo on like the top corner of the screen, for only like the first 4 stages, and then like any capture, like snapshot capture after like stage 4 or something, like you cannot do that at all. So there's definitely some like hard restrictions and limitations on on it because of the licenses involved.
And the other thing is, so I didn't play much of the demo because, again, whenever there's a save transfer demo, I only want to do that on a platform I'm sure I'm going to play it on. So I was like, I'll just wait to see what happens closer to launch. But since you played a lot, I was discussing in our staff chat with Kite about the performance. And he said 60 FPS and map gameplay is easy enough, but what most hardcore fans want to know is what happens in the battle scenes, because they usually cap to 24 or 30 FPS for artistic reasons. But if you fast forward, they can go to 60 FPS. Do you have anything to say about that? Because I didn't really pay attention to that. But...
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Like, because of SRW, especially modern SRW these days, is trying to like convey as much as possible of like how the anime depicts the combat of these scenes. A lot of the animations for the attacks, when like the unit is like performing their attack, like the frame rate is capped to 24 or 30, because it's trying to depict like how the anime conveys those attacks. Like when Gridman is trying to do its attack, like it's deliberately not running at 60 FPS when you're like running at normal speed, because it's trying to capture like, you know, how the anime look of it. Of course, the anime runs like, you know, at 23.9 something FPS. And when you fast forward these scenes, like you can hold down circle to fast forward the animation, it'll actually speed up those animations. So it'll run at a faster frame rate because it's fast forwarding those animations, so the actual movement of those animations goes by faster, so therefore the frame rate is higher. That's kind of the long and short of it on that. So yes, that like even though the background themselves, like behind the units, runs at a high frame rate, the actual movement of the mechs themselves is capped because of artistic reason on that, which is always a weird conundrum, because like I don't know how I'd feel about the units always animating at 60. I do like that it does try to capture the actual keyframes of those attacks. But then there's also like older SRW entries which always had like high frame rate for the attacks, and those always looked cool as well too. So it didn't try to capture that anime aesthetic because they didn't have the technological advancements that we do today on that end. So yeah.
And one last question is, so as usual, this game has like 3 or 4 editions or something. Have you looked into what's happening over there with the DLC? Because I was a bit confused when I was even writing up the news on it, because it seems like every single DLC pack has its own bonus mission. So like, if you buy the standard game and you pay $30 for the premium sound and data pack, that also gives you some extra bonus mission and stuff. Like, just curious if any of these are like just fluff missions where they like give you cheat money and all that stuff, or do they ever actually have useful missions over here?
They do have useful missions, like Super Robot Wars 30 had like some like, you know, more lighthearted like gag bonus missions that had like really fun character interactions, and like, you know, the missions themselves aren't like super complex, but you're really in it like to see like the more lighthearted story missions that are more casual, that has characters being more casual to one another. So like in general, based on like the past track record of like SRW DLC missions, like they're usually worth it, in my opinion. But that's me. But it's also like, you know, that's because I like that crossover character interaction aspect of these games. Like I think that's a big part of it for me. Some people might only care about the mechs and that's all. And you're not really missing out on much, in my opinion, then, if you only care about the mechs on that, because these games are already substantial, gigantic in themselves. Like you're basically bolting on like another I don't know, 5 to 7 hours full of like content on top of like a 80+ hour game already. You know, so like that's because I'm like a diehard fan of the series that like I like seeing. I don't want to miss out on anything because I like having as many mechs as possible, seeing as many character interactions as possible, and getting like, the full mission list on that. And so for me, usually the DLC is always worth it, except for maybe like the premium sound and the highest tier that adds like the openings and ending themes of the of the units to their attack animations, because this game already supports like custom MP3 integration, at least on PS5 and PC. Now on Switch, I don't think it does on that end.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So maybe that'll be more worth it on there. But if people want to go through the effort of adding custom MP3s themselves instead of buying those, then by all means, it's not super complicated to get that all set. So that's how I see it though. Like I'm always gonna get like the highest like SKU version of these games, because one, I'd like to support the games. I want to see more of them happen. That's why I do it. Two, I think most of it is worth it as a fan of the series.
I think you're going to go into the older SRW games that
Yeah.
you played, because you played the SR. So I'm
sorry,
teeing
yeah.
myself up here. So you were talking about the demo for SRWY. Is it Y or is it Gamma? It's
Y,
just
yeah.
Y, right?
Yeah.
And that's coming out the end of the month. But also you've been playing a few older titles.
Yeah, I'll try to remember. I was like, what was I talking about again? Because this gets really it's a lot. So yeah, I've been replaying the original Generation 1 on PS2, and there's also weird of itself, because on PS2 for original generation, there's a title called Super Robot Wars Original Generations, which has a remake of original generation 1 and 2, which were both released as separate titles on Game Boy Advance before that. So these are just like full remakes of those games, built from the ground up, and they're awesome games. I mean, I've been working on an article to kind of be this sort of like comprehensive English gateway of like what makes the original generation games awesome. But it's like it's one of those articles that's like it's very research intensive, because I know a lot about them and their lineage, but getting them into paper and trying to explain them in simple terms to the English audience is like very, very, very tough. Like I might need like I might like rope in like 2 to 3 of my like friends as editors who know as much, if not more than me, to like help me fact check and try to help me with the readability of it, because I don't intend for it to be like a comprehensive Bible, but I think it's gonna end up like that. So like I've been slowly working on it. It's like an article that I've honestly held off on writing for years. Like it's one of those things like, do I want to do this? Because if I do this, it's gonna be a really, really timely endeavor, and also very kind of intensive endeavor. Because if I want to do this, I want to do it right, for the international audience. So I've been that's kind of partially why I've been replaying that game, and I also have a few other original generation games also that I want to like touch, just to maybe get screen caps up, because most of these games haven't been officially released in English at all. Like the ones that have are like the first 2 original generation games on GBA, thanks to Atlas for North America, and 505 Games did the one for Europe, European distribution on those. And then after that, it's not until Moon Dwellers in 2016 that got an official English release, but for Southeast Asian territories, and the localization quality on that is infamously not great. It's okay, serviceable, but a lot of errors.
A Bandai Namco game that released in Asia with not a great localization. Who could have imagined that?
Yeah. And then I think one of the spin-offs, the Endless Frontier spin-offs, did get an official English localization. It's a light tie-in into some installments, but the sequel to that didn't get an official English localization. And then on top of that, all the titles in between, including the original generation's remake on PS2, original generation Gaiden, second Super Robot Wars OG on PS3, the Dark Prison DLC, story DLC that's part of that. What was the there's like an Endless Frontier Exceed, which is the sequel. Just so many original generation titles that didn't get localized. Like I even put it, and this might actually be like the headline pitch or the headline of the article. It's like the original generation series of Super Robot Wars is basically the Trail / Kiseki equivalent, in a lot of ways in terms of like where it stands on localization, and it faces a lot of the similar challenges in Kiseki, where it is such a big interconnected storyline that has a massive roster size and a lot of like interwinding storylines alongside it. Like it faces a lot of the similar challenges that Trails faced like a decade ago when like only SC was coming out in the West. So it's kind of, I don't know. It's been interesting, and also I've also been like kind of doing a replay of Super Robot Wars Z because that's like my personal favorite SRW title maybe ever. And
Like Z1 or
Z1
the sequel?
No, Z1 on PS2. That game's fucking amazing. so yeah, I've just kind of been in that spiral again. I shouldn't do this because I don't want to burn myself out in SRW before Y comes out. Like I've been trying to keep myself in check and not try to go crazy on it because I need to, because these games are fucking gigantic and massive, and Y is gonna be another 60 to 70 hour endeavor, if not more.
Don't worry, Josh. It can't go as poorly as when I played Sheeran the Wanderer 4 and prep for Sheeran 6.
Yeah, surely. But yeah. So
I wouldn't call myself a big expert, but I definitely play off of 3 the most. That's like my favorite.
Oh yeah, Alpha 3. Alpha 3 is also an amazing game, like just an amazing test of its technology, really. But it is also that point in time in SRW where like it became way too much. The roster size, the scenario size, like it is a fantastic game, but it is also a very big bloated game. Like it is. It is.
I have 3 playthroughs. Actually, one of the playthroughs I was basically soft locked. It kept going to the Ideon bad ending when I did. And then it's like, okay, I guess this playthrough's done. It's like I beat it with like 3 characters, but one of them, because I can't fully read Japanese, and one of the choices I made, it basically soft locked me to the Ideon bad.
Yeah. It's one of those games that like you kind of need to know, have a good reading of Japanese to get like the true ending in some of these titles, because it could be really easy to kind of get you. It's like where you are, Chow, on that. Like a lot of like older SRW titles too had like really they had like secret units, secret characters, secret weapons, secret attachments that like you would straight up like not know that they're there unless you like read a guide. Like the only way that people found out really about them for like firmly was through like the SRW Perfect guides that came out months later after their initial releases. Like people found like that was the only way to get like solid confirmation of like what the requirements were to get these secrets. Like they were really well like kept off, and people like stumbled into them by accident most of the time until the Perfect guides came out for them officially. And those were awesome days too. I really hope that SRWY has like a good amount of secrets like that. I really, I cross my fingers, like please have awesome secrets. Oh, please. That's what I love about these games too. It's like the secrets in them are just freaking great.
Do you remember the day when GameFAQs does not exist? Discover these secrets on your own.
10,000%, yes. It felt impossible. Without GameFAQs,
everyone at the elementary school or middle school lunch table knew all the secrets, and half of them were bogus, but some of them are legit.
It's like Final Fantasy 6. Like it's like when I played Final Fantasy VI with my cousin knew every damn secret about that game, and then I just go to GameFAQs and people are talking about these like secrets like 20 years later, like it was something new. I'm like, what the hell you're talking about? I thought this was common knowledge.
Yeah, so that's what I've been kind of into. But there's gonna be a lot of freaking games coming out soon that I realistically can't get to because my main priority out of the new releases is the new SRW game. But then there's like a lot of like freaking awesome releases alongside that too. Let me see if I can pull up real fast, like what other video games are coming out at the end of August around that time frame. Like August. Besides that, you have Metal Gear Solid Delta. You have our Furyu Goat Varlet. You have Lost Soul Aside and the new Shinobi game, which all I've heard is good things about. I didn't play the demo yet.
There's the Story of Seasons remake.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's the Ginger Gaiden Ragebound count.
That came out a few weeks ago.
Shinobi Art of Vengeance. That's coming out on the 29th. And then the new re-release of the Kirby and the Forgotten Land on Switch 2 with the new content in it as well. So there's a lot going on, man. I'm like, I really want to get to these, but I know where my heart lies at the end of the day. And that's not even getting to like the early September stuff coming like the week after, which is like Demonschool.
Which finally has a release date. Yep,
it does, and we'll talk about it in a bit. And then I also have the Daemon X Machina as well. Early September, so yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on.
And then before we get into the news, Mikhail, I think you were the last one here that said you had a couple of indie games that you wanted to talk about that you played over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so because like you just mentioned, there's a lot coming soon, and I am playing Daemon X Machina. I put out a preview, but can't talk about much of that. Can't talk about Story of Seasons beyond the preview stuff either. So just two indie games recently released. One of them was a shadow drop from the Nintendo Indie Showcase, which is this seat taken? It's this. That's the first one, and the other game I want to talk about is Time Flies. Both of these pretty short. Is this seat taken? Is a game I apparently had on my Steam account since May because I didn't pay attention to one of the events I attended when I was sent some preview builds to check out, and I apparently missed this when I tried out all the others, and I kind of feel like kicking myself for it because I've been obsessed with this game for the last 3 days. It's a logic puzzler where you have to pick up people and put them in specific, like they have their own requirements. Like these are people represented by shapes, and it starts out in a bus or a cab or something, and one person will be like, I want to sit near the window, I want an aisle seat, I don't like strong odors. They have all these requirements. And as each level goes by, they start adding some complexities through like environmental things. Like you can turn on or turn off the air conditioner, and then some people are like, no, I'm too cold now. And then there's another situation where in a train there are people who want to talk to each other, but then you have to have their bags arranged in a certain way. So it keeps adding on this and building onto it. It starts out pretty simple, and where I am right now, I'm nearly at the end. I think I'm about 5.5 hours I've played so far, which is like pretty good. I think for a game like this, it's only $10. And the funny thing is, this game is out on PC, Switch, and mobile only. And based on how it controls, this is one of those games where I kind of wish they had a Switch 2 version, because you have to like pick up and drag people onto their position. It would have been really good with mouse controls, but it's a Switch 1 game. And it's a game which absolutely plays best with a touchscreen. But still, I've been playing it on like docked on the Switch 2 because I got the new Pro controller. So I've just been using that. So been enjoying that quite a bit. Some of the puzzles are a bit trial and error, I feel like, maybe because it's like going through each, like some of them have maybe 20 people. You have to like go through all their requirements and put them in the correct positions or whatever. But I think that's my only complaint with it, is just a nice, lovely, relaxing game, I would say, with very catchy soothing music also. For some reason, I haven't been able to buy the soundtrack yet. Usually with these games, once I play an hour or two, I'm like, okay, time to buy the soundtrack on Steam. But it isn't available for this, so hopefully they add it soon. That's something I recommend checking out. And the other game is kind of a game I didn't think I would be playing or whatever, but because the publisher is Panic, who have made some of my favorite Mac software for a long time, they got into
Before you move
publishing
on, I just
game.
want to say that sounds
Yeah.
like a really neat premise for the game. Like it's a very simple, elegant idea about like trying to seat people based on their preferences with like escalating requirements and limitations and boundary conditions. Just as for a puzzler, that sounds like a neat concept.
And I think they like usually they could have just left it there because it has a very nice aesthetic, like elegant design, very good menus and stuff, and good sound design. But they even added some some flavor to each of these interactions. So like there's a scene where you're in a classroom and the professor is like, I don't want people distracted over here, and then you have to like go through. Some people are like, I want to help others, I want to copy this person's homework, I don't want to sit next to them because I have a crush on them and I'll get distracted. So all of this stuff keeps getting added, and when you finish the level, you get like a short cutscene playing out, and they have these sprinkled in as well. So really great experience. I recommend someone like who's interested, just check it out. It's on mobile, Switch and PC. If you have the option, I would actually play it on mobile because with a touchscreen, it plays like fantastic on the iPad. But you can do that also on like a Steam Deck or PC or Switch. So yeah, just good recommendation over there.
Definitely sounds like either a tablet or a PC game for sure.
Yeah. And the other game is Time Flies is by a developer called Playables, who I wasn't familiar with them before this, but because Panic is the publisher who did Untitled Goose Game and one of my favorite games from last year, Thank Goodness You're Here, they published that also. This is it's a monochromatic game where you play as a fly, and when you start the game, it actually just detects your location and it says the average like life expectancy for your country is whatever, like 70 or 69 years, and that's the time you get as a fly. You have that many seconds before you die. Yeah. And obviously you have a drop down, so you can choose another country if you want, but I just found that funny, like it just detects this. And when you start playing it,
one thing I love is that there's like multiple little things where the game doesn't actually like criticize you for just choosing the country with the longest average lifespan.
Yeah, Japan, which is Japan.
Yeah, it doesn't really judge you for it, but there are little gags where there's a bit in the second level of the museum where if your
the VPN thing,
if your country does not match up, if it does not match up with your like actual region, it says something like that. And also in the museum, because there's like statues of nudity, like they're mosaic filtered out if you're playing in Japan. Which is funny.
Yeah, this one actually had an escalating thing, because first when I got to that point, anyway, so before I get to that, you play as a fly and it doesn't tell you anything of what you're supposed to do except you have a bucket list of it doesn't tell you what order or how you can accomplish this, but you have a bucket list of things to do in the first location. And these are kind of vague, kind of funny. Some of them is like learn an instrument, one of them is make someone laugh, and you have to explore, but you only have like 60 or 70 seconds initially. So it's like I think half-minute hero, or no, minute is the game, which is similar to this, where you have only 1 minute to do whatever. So as a fly, you fly around, you can fall into a glass and you die. And then there are other things where it says make a friend, and it doesn't tell you where any of this is. So you explore, you go to the kitchen, you see ants on the floor, you go next to the ants. That's how apparently you make a friend. Then while flying around, you see a guitar, you strum the guitar a few times. That's how you learn an instrument. And the aim is to finish the entire bucket list before you die. And this is quite challenging initially, because I think it took me about 18 or 19 attempts once I figure out each of the bucket list items in the first area before I unlock the second one. And in addition to all of this, Sorry,
I just want to say, for whatever reason, it feels like the first level was the hardest, like the harshest with the time. At least that's how I felt. Like the others weren't so bad, but the first one was pretty tough.
I actually don't know whether I found that tough because it was the first one we were doing and we were just learning the ins and outs of it, or if it was just that. But yeah, so, and there are also these puzzles you can collect, like puzzle pieces. That's like the collectible, which are kind of spread around the thing. So there's a lot to this as well. And this is another, I think this is like 15 or 10. Yeah, this is $15. I think you can see everything it has to offer if you're good with it in about 3 hours. I absolutely loved it. In fact, like for I wrote a review for this for Nintendo Insider, but I actually delayed my review by about 3 or 4 days because when I wanted to do my photo, I wanted to make sure I got an actual fly in the photo. And that took a while to do. So I actually had like there's in the first level there's a moment where you can just fall into like a wine glass and die, and I said I'm gonna replicate this. So it took me a while to do that, but I literally left like I think a banana on the window, and like I was just waiting for something. Nothing happened. It took like a few days, and I got a fly. I caught it in a glass, and I was like, okay, now I can get the review done. So yeah, this is some behind the scenes hilarity on that. But yeah, these are the two games, like indie games, I wanted to like shout out because I played them quite a bit. And beyond that, just two quick article shout outs to uh, some of the stuff I've been doing with the backward compatibility testing because I did Shin Megami Tensei and I did Persona recently over the last 2 weeks, obviously, because we didn't record last time. Just want to say that Shin Megami Tensei Vengeance really needs a Switch 2 update. Like, Sega, come on, just do that. And for Persona 5 Royal looks really ugly on the Switch too. Okay, we can move on now.
So not a good report card for Shin Megami Tensei or Persona.
Shin Megami Tensei, I can say like it has improvements and stuff. The games, like a lot of them have benefits like dynamic res and stuff, but it's still fine to play. But like at this point, just play it elsewhere if you really can. Persona, like yeah, it's P5R specifically and P3P. They need a lot. But like Reload is coming to Switch too, right? So we'll see how that goes.
Right.
But yeah, Persona 5 Royal really needs a paid upgrade or a new version. It looks ugly on Switch too. But yeah, we can move on.
And that dovetails into one. We can just tack this on very quickly. You also did. It is the I get this anniversary right. 30th anniversary of
oh yeah, if you want to talk about that, yeah. So
yeah,
I was a little confused about. Might as well get there.
Before you start, I just want to say something. So I have not read your Chrono Trigger article, but you're trying to say like 30th anniversary. Where's the best place to play it? Did you pick DS or PC?
I picked DS.
Go into it just a little bit, just for a few minutes. Like
okay,
what did you find out when revisiting Chrono Trigger?
So first, I wasn't sure what the 30th anniversary was because there's like some back and forth between the release date where some reports had it as August 11th, some had it as August 22nd. My article went up in the middle of both of those like a few days ago or last week. I lost track of time. Yeah, so but Chrono Trigger is interesting because it was the first Square Enix game I played. So revisiting it, I have revisited it over the years because like it has had a few ports, but DS is basically the best version as far as I'm concerned because it has no performance issues. The scaling is more or less good for the screen. The soundtrack I don't have a problem with. Apparently some people really have problems with how the soundtrack has changed. I love the soundtrack on the DS version as well. The new content is it's kind of dog shit, not worth it. Just it's just there. It's not why you're playing it. You're playing on DS because the UI, you can have that immersive mode where the top screen just lets you view the actual gameplay. You can have the UI on the bottom. It has the updated translation. Some people prefer the SNES one. I prefer the DS one, I think now. No problems with like diagonal movement and stuff. So yeah, like it's basically the best version there. The PC version, while they did fix the scaling so you don't have the ugly, blurry, whatever the tiling issues and stuff, they introduced a bug with diagonal movement. So when you move diagonally when playing Chrono Trigger, the sprites have this jitter constantly. They've not fixed it. Someone made a mod which apparently doesn't seem to work reliably enough. So I didn't mention that. Like with the Moguri mod in FF9 when I covered that. Chrono Trigger on Steam also has a music reset issue, which has plagued a lot of Square Enix Final Fantasy re-releases. Also not fixed. So kind of disappointing on that front. The UI also, while improved over the original version, is still not great. Yeah, it's kind of just, it's disappointing. Like, I'd put it below SNES for those issues. SNES obviously has its own problems where, like, how do you get that? Do you own it? Like, whatever. Like, I have the SNES, the Super Famicom original, so if I want to revisit it, I can get that, like, on a retro, or what's the analog, whatever. So that is there. The main takeaway is, like, do not bother with the PS1 version at all. It's awful. It takes too long to load everything. It's kind of the FF9 Switch of the bunch. Like, just don't play it if you have another option. Yeah, DS, like the Steam version, if they can fix the music and if they can fix the diagonal movement, I would put it just below DS. But right now it's like third. So yeah, for Chrono Trigger's anniversary, the best version is a version not available to buy right now. And I also learned something while doing this article that that I was talking to a friend of mine who, like, has played every virtual console release, and she knows a lot about this. So I discovered that Chrono Trigger did get a virtual console release, and the SNES version, that was the last official way to play the SNES version was through Wii Virtual Console. And the last thing I learned is on DS, if you boot up on 3DS, if you boot up a DS game and you hold select, it loads it in pixel perfect mode. I did not know this. So it obviously doesn't use up the whole screen, but it doesn't have, like, blurry visuals because it's exactly pixel perfect. So that's something I learned, and I think I will use that if I revisit some other DS games on 3DS. So yeah.
And I remember the Chrono Trigger when it released on PC. It was like a semi-surprise release, but it released, like, so terribly. People were like, "Holy shit, Chrono Trigger on PC!" And they're like, "Wow, this is awful." And then, like, over the next few months, they got it into, like, a workable state. But then the updates just kind of stopped. So it sounds like they never fixed the diagonal and they never fixed the looping issue, which, like you said,
the diagonal thing. The diagonal thing was actually introduced in an update. It wasn't a problem initially.
Okay.
And there's also this misconception that Chrono Trigger for PC was just a mobile port. What they actually did is they actually ruined the iOS version when they released the PC version, because it got this quote-unquote upgrade version which added all the blurry visuals and stuff. But yeah, I covered all that in the long article, which you can read if you want to revisit or if you want to play Chrono Trigger for the first time. Consider DS if you can.
And while we're doing article shout-outs, over the last couple of weeks, we've had a few reviews go up. I'm just going to basically just quickly shout them through here now. So this one is one that I had to be reminded that we never actually finished up. So back earlier in the year, we had a review in progress for Assassin's Creed Shadows, just because the game was ginormous. We were able to have the author who originally wrote the review in progress come back and finish it up, and they thought pretty highly of it. Adam, me and you were discussing Assassin's Creed Shadows and Dave's review. He scored it really highly, but as like he criticized it significantly, but basically said he still scored it high because he just found it a lot of fun. Like, he could look past the flaws even though he identified them. So I don't know if you had an opinion on when you were editing Dave's review for Assassin's Creed.
He basically says that it avoids, like, the issues that, like, Valhalla and other games had, where the open world RPG elements are they're kind of bloated, they're kind of repetitive, just kind of map filling, bar filling, things like that. He says that those have been curtailed a bit, and having the two separate characters with Nioh and Yasuke gives it so, like, you have that variety in terms of, like, okay, this is more like the assassin stealth, this is more like the action combat player, and so, like, it makes it so not everything always feels the same all the time. So he said it's basically like a good blend of those kind of like old style, new style Assassin's Creed, but not all the issues are completely like all the, just kind of typical Assassin's Creed criticisms. They're still there.
Right.
And, like, but so if you read his review, one of the things that he really likes about the game is just, like, its depiction of Japan at the time. And he's been to Japan, Dave, several times. And, like, how a shrine might look, had it, in this time period. and so on and so forth. And I know the game had some like adjustments here and there about like what would be realistic for the setting. But I know in the review he talks about some specific places that he thought were pretty well done.
So yeah, we have the final Assassin's Creed Shadow review up on the site. We also got a review for Eden Zero, the much maligned game that we've talked about a few times. But actually, we got Hayes. What's his last name again? Let me
Madsen.
Let me pull it up. Madsen. So yeah, he's been on the podcast once about
to talk
3
about
months ago or so, 4 months ago. All right, yeah, and so we were able to tap him to cover Eden Zero, and he took an interesting approach with it. He basically, like, the game, surprisingly, he did not think very highly of, but he used it as an opportunity to speak to, like, it's so unfortunate that these anime IPs often get these, like, very thin, rough experiences, and it doesn't have to be that way. And there was a period of time when that wasn't the bygone conclusion that it kind of
remember
for a lot of
Legacy of
titles.
Goku 2 and Boo's Fury on the GBA, which were some of the best GBA games.
Or that
kind of like
Naruto Ninja Storm games, like the when that was at its peak of popularity. Go ahead.
It's always interesting because like SRW is right there, persistent, like long running series. It's like 1991. That's like, and it's it's had its ups and downs, but it has like a general base of quality to them. That like it's been able to last this long, and like it's still a pretty highly respected series. And it's just that entire series for the most part is just a big crossover series before crossovers became like almost the cultural norm these days. It always celebrated this genre of recognizable and unrecognizable and like recognizable and niche, like giant robot anime IPs, like so just like anime licensed games can be better, and SRW through the sheer amount of years it's persisted and lived on and still maintains a highly respectable view from its fans. It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah. But for the review, Eden Zero, unfortunately, not on that side of the river. But
I get it. Yeah.
So it's an interesting review, even though it is a negative review. I guess that's kind of the framework I was trying to get to it.
For sure.
So that's also up on the site. James was able to revisit Wild Hearts with Wild Hearts S. So that's up on the site. James, is there like a 1-sentence summary for the Switch 2 version of Wild Hearts?
It's a relatively good port. If you've not played Wild Hearts and you like Monster Hunter style games and you have a Switch 2, you should. Well, I would like to say you should pick up this version, but the problem that it's not crossplay when every other version has probably already become an issue because the player base is not very big, and I don't know if this port's going to keep selling. So it's like I would love to like revisit it in a couple of months and see if it has an active player base, but something tells me that won't really be the case. So
yeah, Wild Hearts is a game we thought pretty highly of, despite the technical issues on PC and some of the design decisions. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so sorry. I was thinking back on like the anime license games, and I was thinking like,
okay.
Hey, remember when Full Metal Alchemist came out and it was a strategy RPG, but it was a mobile game? Like, fuck, man, why didn't they just make a fucking home console PC FMA strategy RPG that encompassed the events of the story in the manga and Brotherhood anime? Man, that'd be fucking awesome.
Well, you see, the types of people that were watching that anime when they were kids in Japan are now office workers, and the only time they have the only time they have to play games is on their phones on their commute.
Man, but I want a really cool Full Metal Alchemist strategy RPG that's not a mobile game. What about that?
And this is from someone who champions mobile games when they get a chance, because they're not all that way. But Full Metal Alchemist again fell down. The last review we have is this is actually an interesting one that Adam. I was actually asking Adam before the podcast, like, what is this game again? I've seen people talk about it. The game is called Off, OFF. So yes, jokes about I've reviewed Off, I beat Off, and I reviewed it or whatever.
How long to beat Off?
This is a review. Yes, how long did it take to beat Off? But so Cullen reviewed Off for us, OFF, and Adam, you gave me some interesting context for this game about what it is. I didn't realize it was a sort of re-release, but with some context behind it. So, but you can say it more eloquently than I can. So we got a new review on the site for Off. What is Off?
Okay, so I'm not probably the best person to explain this because I wasn't in that realm at the time. But as I understand it, this is it originally released in 2008, 2009. It was like a French or Belgian indie game, like a RPG Maker free game made in it's either French or Belgium, and got a fan translation a few years after that. And so if you were in that sort of early indie scene playing free RPG Maker games back then, this is one that gained some traction. And, kind of because it was weird, it was off-putting, it was kind of strange, but compelling in a weird way. Kind of that sort of weird, but interesting weird sorts of games, RPG. Mm-hmm. And I suppose this game went to inspire other later games, indie games of that style, including games like Undertale, which of course caught on like fire, and made Toby Fox kind of a household name in this sphere, right? So this version of Off is a remaster, basically. It took the original game and it added, components to it to basically package it and sell it as a paid release that you can buy on Steam, you can buy on Switch. And it added a few things in terms of content, but not just content. Things like menus were updated. I know I was talking to some fan gamer people at Summer Game Fest. I got to play it there a little bit. And they added small things, or they might seem small, like sound effects when you move. Those weren't in the original. Or footprints in the snow, in a pixel game, things like that. So they touched it up the game here and there, and repackaged it and sold it. And here is a remastered, English language, maybe other languages too, version of the game that you can buy on Steam, on Switch. Now there are a couple of caveats with this being now a paid premium game. And Cullen went into this in his review, and I saw other people did as well. The original game being a freemium game or a free game, I don't know the full details of the soundtrack, but it had a soundtrack that was people it suited the game well. People attached to the soundtrack and are fond of it. But now that this is a paid product from Fangamer, the soundtrack had to be redone completely due to certain legalities. I don't know the specifics. So it's a brand new soundtrack. And I know Toby Fox actually composed at least some of the songs for this new soundtrack. And Cullen talked about it, and I know others have as well, where they like some of the new songs, they're really fond of it, but they're just different from the original songs, right? And so that's just kind of a consequence of the situation, the circumstance, right? Nothing nefarious or anything like that. It's just now that this is a paid game getting a re-release 17 years later or whatever, that's just how it had to be. So yeah, it's about if you're wondering, it takes about 7 hours to beat Off, but it took Cullen about 10 because he's a completionist. And so,
oh man, there's an episode titled here somewhere to be totally inappropriate.
It's a sort of game where he actually concluded that he played the game, he really appreciates it for what it is. He still doesn't fully think he understands it. I played the game, I got the credits. I'm not exactly sure what I just played, but I like it, I think. So
I respect it.
Right. I think he gave it an 8, but the score doesn't really matter. He just it was interesting, it was cool, it was kind of weird. I'm not sure I fully got it, but try it out. It's not that long.
Yeah, I love indie releases from that era, but back before Xbox Live, Arcade really kind of blew stuff up. You just find some really fascinating sort of games that you don't really see as much these days, it feels like.
If they are around these days, it's it feels like itch would be where they would end up. And the thing is one of those things I'm sure they are there out these days, but it's so hard to it's such a flooded market in terms of finding the diamonds in the rough. It can be tricky. So it's cool that this game got an opportunity to re-showcase itself in that way. But yep, that's the suite of reviews and features on RPG site over the last 2 weeks. We do have a few people that are working on some other games. We kind of mentioned Story of Seasons, Demon X Machina have preview opportunities, but previews, a lot of times, like, we're just gonna be able to talk about the full release in a few weeks anyway, so we'll kind of leave that for next week or the week after's podcast as we get into September for those titles. So that will go into news. So thank you to everyone who has helped cover the news over the last few weeks up on the site. I know Mikhail, Kite has done a bunch. I know Adam's helped, and others as well have helped cover the news for the site over the last 2 weeks. I wasn't sure exactly which order to kind of go through these headlines because there's no big like number one thing we got to talk about here. But this is the one that I kind of just moved to first place. And this is the announcement of an Atelier series Trilogy Deluxe pack, which is not a new concept, but for the Ryza Secret Trilogy. So the Atelier Ryza Secret Trilogy Deluxe pack will launch on November 13th. So these are the DX versions with additional content. In addition, Gus has announced that the Ryza series has sold over 2.5 million copies. And then when the DX versions do release in November, the existing versions will be delisted. I think I got all the details for that. I don't know, Adam or potentially James, because I believe you've played all three. Yes, if there's any other context with these, I'll go to James because you haven't had a chance to speak to a ton of things yet outside of Wild Hearts. So, any opinions on the Ryza Secret Trilogy getting the announcement of a trilogy pack with DX versions with additional characters, content, maps, things like that?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was pretty much what I expected to eventually happen because they've done that with all the other modern games so far. I'm interested in the new content. I don't know if I'll fully replay the games because especially like Ryza 2 and 3 are pretty long. Ryza 3 especially. I'm interested to see how that stuff plays in. I'm interested to see because I didn't really revisit Ryza 3 once they did that patch to help with the translation. I imagine it's fine now because like Yumiya was fine. But yeah.
They did mention, I see in the headline, like a save transfer of some sort. I haven't read into the details of that.
I don't think it's a save transfer. I think it's if you have save data, it'll give you costs.
Oh, it's like a little bonus. Oh, I see. Gotcha. Yeah. Not a transfer. Just hey, we saw you played the game. Here's a little freebie.
Yeah, okay. To be clear, it doesn't support like save data transfer at all into the base version to the DX version. It's just that bonus thing. But I think the bigger heads up is like, hey, these games usually the original versions went on sale a lot, so there might be more chances before they get delisted that they go on sale for cheaper prices. So if you're not really interested in like getting the DX versions, which has like some additional stuff like new playable characters and maybe some new story bits, so you want to play them for cheap, just make sure like the original versions will be delisted as soon as these DX versions get released. So just be aware of that. They won't be sticking around.
I will say though that the base price for each of these is like what, 40? I don't think the games have gone below that anyway, so you might as well just wait if you haven't picked them up.
Yeah. Who knows? Like,
only
but,
the
like, let's say if they get like $5 to $10, who knows?
Yeah.
And they're bringing it to PS Plus, like just Ryza 3.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and that's pretty funny because like the game is getting delisted in a few months.
The next topic, this is not an announcement, but this is for one of the biggest upcoming games in the next couple months. This is for the worldwide release of Trails in the Sky first chapter. It looks like, let me pull up, we have 3 different articles here that have come out over the last 2 weeks. These are all based from interviews with Falcom and a Japanese outlet called Gamer, not The Gamer, which is a British website, but Gamer. And basically, it looks like Kite and Mikhail have covered. I'm not sure if this was one interview or like a series of features in Gamer.
It's a series of different interviews. Like some of them were for like Trails' future, and then one of them was for Sky First remake in particular. Like we have to be conscious about like linking these directly because one of them has a direct spoiler from Beyond the Horizon, like a really big spoiler. So they use that as a thumbnail for them. So it's like, okay, extract the bits that are relevant and interesting here, because we want to avoid spoilers as much as we can for the audience. But it's basically Falcom President CEO Kondo has been kind of doing this media tour, primarily for Trails in the Sky, the first remake. Went to different outlets, not just through to Gamer, but there's recently like a profile from Bloomberg's Jason Schreier that he did. That was a really fascinating profile on Kondo, basically on how he started working at the company. And Schreier pointed out that one of the most interesting tidbits is like he might be the only CEO that got to where he is. He first started as like as a Falcom fan site and guide writer, and like basically he ran a Falcom fan site and got hired into the company and eventually rose the ranks to become a CEO. So like he really had like a grassroots like beginning at that company as a genuine fan, and might be one of the only CEOs out there that, at least in the gaming industry, that got that start.
Chow can take over soon.
And yeah, and it depends on like where you want to start on these, but there's a lot of like interesting little tidbits that he shared with Gamer and Bloomberg about the remake on this. But I guess the first thing that I guess caught everyone off guard is one of the stories he was telling to Gamer is that one of the programmers at Falcom at a recent meeting shared that it took them 80 hours to complete the first chapter remake. And it's important to get this context out of the way first. That doesn't necessarily mean that the remake will be an 80-hour game all of a sudden, that like that's the average playtime or whatever. Remember, this is coming from programmers, so they have to be extra thorough about their playthrough, making sure like bug like they're obviously fixing bugs, seeing them, making sure that everything's working right, and obviously the factoring in like, hey, there's definitely going to be a bigger game than the original, because there'll be like bigger maps, bigger zones. Obviously,
we know there's additional quests, so
yeah, additional quests. The scenes themselves have full voice acting now. So if you want to, like, unlike the original, you can get through text boxes really fast, but now there's actual like cutscene choreography for a lot of the scenes with full voice acting. So naturally, the scenes in this game will take naturally longer than the more static interactions in the original game. So I guess that's kind of like a primary thing that people should know heads up. Like, hey, this doesn't mean that there's all of a sudden an 80-hour game that you're signing up for. That's just what they mentioned in that meeting with that program.
And I saw some people saying like, well, the I forget what they're called. The deluxe versions had voice acting on, and they weren't that long. But it's like, yeah, but also, this is now fully 3D animated. We don't know if that's going to take any, make just progressing through the same story and same things take longer in that respect. And then, like you said, James, there is some new content as well. We just don't know the extent of that. We can only guess, speculate,
I know,
and surmise.
One thing that people have noticed is that when you clear a side quest now, you get, or I guess any quest, because everything's logged in your Bracer notebook, there's actually like a photo attached to it to kind of signify what that quest was, and people are like speculating about that, and I'm like, wonder if they'll do anything.
Yeah, so who knows on that, but it is interesting. Like, wow, that is a pretty beefy playthrough for that programmer to undergo that. So everyone's, I'm pretty excited to see like how, like I hope it's not like too long. Obviously, like the original game is a pretty, like on average you could beat the original game like 30-35 hours if you're just playing through it casually. If you're more completionist, it'll take longer.
Yeah, it's a pretty brisk playthrough, which for me I'd say is well, I'd consider its like biggest strength.
Yeah.
But I do understand why this needs to be longer if they're adding in new side quests, which that's fine. I don't think adding in a few more side quests is a problem. And same thing with the cutscenes. Like what they've shown of the animated cutscenes, I think it's well worth it, especially some of the little bits and pieces we've caught from the most recent promotional trailer, which is a pretty obvious remake of the original Trails in the Sky, like promotional trailer that released all the way back in 2004, which is really neat.
Yeah, really.
I didn't catch that.
References to that. The next one that we decided to point out from this media tour that Kondo did, Kite translated it. Also interviewed with Gamer and Chow. Like you'll definitely this is kind of pretty standard, I'd say. Where it's kind of like from a Western perspective, this will seem weird, but it's definitely something worth bringing up in the Japanese context, where Kondo actually, had to go into detail like why they decided to recast a lot of the Japanese original voice actors with only like a few like Olivier's with Koyasu like remain. Kondo pointed for reference, as Kite mentioned, like the original Seiyu, Japanese voice actors for Estelle and Joshua was Akemi Kanda and Mitsuki Saiga, and they're both 46 and 52 years old now as of the time of this writing. And that's pretty hard to like kind of readjust your voices to have that kind of youthful tone and make it seem believable, especially for an extended amount of time with the amount of voice acting this game has. Like Kondo pointed out, like this is like kind of like the perfect time to like recast them, get more youthful Seiyu for the newer generation involved. This time you have Tomoyo Takayanagi and Natsumi Fujiwara being the voices for Estelle and Joshua now, and Chow, like there's a pretty like a very I guess a Japanese culture thing in that industry to like explain why you have to recast your voice actors. While in the West, it's a bit more fluid and flexible of like contracts, at least on the Western side.
And the West are just kind of like, well, before it was union and now it's non-union, so it just is that way. Deal with it, and it's just or stuff like that. Where it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So
yeah,
what do you think?
The Japanese one, yeah. It's like once you get the role, it's basically like your role for the rest of your life, basically, right? Unless you basically burn your bridges, then they'll recast you, or else you're kind of like stuck there for life.
You have
I guess, right?
like recreational marijuana or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but
I do wonder what the response in Japan will be, because I understand that makes perfect, like what Kondo, the reasoning for it makes perfect sense to me, but I don't know how like that is.
It seems mixed from what I've read so far.
I know, like the original VA, like Mitsuki Saiga, the voice of Joshua, she was like, it's like if they called, I would be like, I would come back like instantly, but they never did. It's like, so I was kind of disappointed to hear that. That's kind of like what she said from her Twitter post, I think it was. Yeah. So yeah, it's like
those sort of comments like fueled the audience as well. But like you can understand it from our perspective, but it's definitely like, those remarks definitely fueled that audience. Like, I can't believe you didn't get Saiga on back.
Yeah, like I'm kind of mixed about it too. It's like I think the original cast is very good. I just think I do agree with Kondo's decision with this, because it's a long running franchise. It's like by the time you get several sequels in, by the time you get
like the third remake out, like in 4 or 5 years, like whenever that happens, they're gonna be in their 50s, and that's kind of rough. So I mean, I get it.
So I think the reason why the argument kind of loses out, they still got like Koyasu voicing like Olivier, and some other characters like Jin.
So Tetracast, yeah.
Yeah, so having those characters like back, it's kind of like, oh, but what about those guys? It's like that doesn't really.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if because of the Olivier thing, it's literally just because they're still actively working with him in more recent titles. Like it's pretty clear that Olivier is probably going to show up in the next game, just like from process of elimination in some form. So I don't know.
Yeah, and because the last time we saw Estelle and Joshua was like Cold Steel 4, and they were recasted in the Japanese version of CS4.
No, they didn't.
No,
but they recasted what is it, Ren's voice. So
right
from there, it's like she's Yuke officially. And instead of I forgot what her original VA name, but her original VA used to like voice a lot of like child characters, like Iris from Sakura Wars, and like a lot of child characters. Like that's what she was kind of famous for, right? Or maybe the cat from Sailor Moon, or I don't even know what her name is.
So, Kondo even mentions in the interview with Gamer, as via Kite's translation on the site, is The question from Gamer was how much do you think the volume of the voices recorded was? And Kondo says the total word count for the voices is more than any prior Trails series entries. So like there's like when you think about the amount of voices like the Cold Steel and Reverie, even Daybreak has like there definitely is a lot, but there's definitely a lot of lines still there that remain unvoiced, and you can kind of go through them pretty quickly because you're just reading through them and go to the next.
I also don't know if this argument's like to say is it the main games, or are you comparing with like the Evo games where they like fully voice the main story? So I don't know.
I do wonder like how fully voiced this is because going like the Demon Ex Machina Titanic Scion, like that entire game is fully voiced. Like even interactions with the NPCs for any like even if it's like not for a side quest or anything, like even just idle chatter, like in the preview period, they're all fully voiced. That is a fully voiced. Like even your create a character, you have dialogue options when you're speaking to someone. All of the dialogue options that you choose are all fully voiced. So like you choose a dialogue option, they will say it out loud, verbatim what you said. Which is very impressive.
I will say though that I do appreciate that Falcom seems to understand that this is probably the best shot. Like if they were gonna fully invest in one Trails game, this is the one to do it because it has everything going for it to get more and more people into the series. So
oh yeah, this has to be the perfect gateway at this point, and they understand that. But I guess the last thing that we'll mention here, and this is part of the more spoiler article like that we're careful in linking back to the source here. Was the headline reads Falcom President Toshihiro Kondo wants to stick to tradition when it comes to RPG combat systems because it's Falcom has gotten through this interesting evolutionary period in Trails, starting with Daybreak 1, going to this more real-time action and turn-based hybrid system, but they don't want to fully strip the series of its kind of turn-based identity at its core. They don't want to they want to introduce evolutions and twist to it, but ultimately they don't want to kind of alienate the fan base that's already built up on that end. So it's a really fascinating kind of insight on what Kondo feels is appropriate for the Trails series and what defines its gameplay, what elements of its gameplay resonates with its audience. Like he mentioned both in the profile in the Bloomberg profile and with Gamer, Falcom is a company that doesn't make decisions based on trends. They don't chase the hottest new thing. They build upon what works for them and what helps them connect to their audience. They're not at the whims of market trends. In that sense, which is always nice to hear, especially these days with the larger conglomerate of the gaming industry.
Yeah, there's a few studios that you could say, that's not the posture that they've taken in the last 10 years. So it's one of those things where you see Kondo say that and you're like, yep, that makes sense. That wouldn't have expected any other way.
Yeah. That kind of on a media blitz, but it's good. It's good to see Kondo be more out there, especially in really can you imagine having a profile on Kondo on Bloomberg that? To me, that process it's unthinkable, and especially when I think about 5 to 10 years ago, it's man, no way Falcom will ever get this popular in the West, and it's here we are having a full on Bloomberg profile. Holy fuck, that's how you know you made it big time. That's how you know you made it big time. Here in the West.
It's the backstory is nothing new, but it's to get the Bloomberg's attention is that's where the big deal comes in, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that, that's sure the backstory isn't new, but a lot of people, the Western audience sure as fuck didn't know, where you came from.
This is kind of a follow-up of a biz dev headline that we had back in June. We talked about how Aquaplus was being set to be sold. We've learned who's acquired Aquaplus. I'm not familiar with this group, but it's Yuke's. Yuke's. Yuke. So they've acquired Aquaplus, as well as subsidiary F.I.X Records. So Kite was able to cover this on the site, and I'm not familiar with a lot of these groups, but Kite does a good job trying to like tee it into our purview. Like, what does this mean? So the way that Kite put it in the headline here is that Yuke's is known for working on wrestling games, such as WWE 2K19. However, like that seems strange, but however, they've also worked as development assistants on titles like Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Tales of Arise. So getting, Aquaplus, who is, in my opinion, most well known for Utawa Ramono series, that's like, all right, that's a little bit more in their wheelhouse than the wrestling games. So that's the base of the information, is that Yuke's has acquired Aquaplus. So Aquaplus has kind of a new ownership group. And then just as a reminder that they're still working on Utawa Ramono, doesn't have an English title yet, Shirohi no Michi Shirube. I apologize if I'm butchering that, but they've got a Utawa Ramono title in the works still underneath this new ownership group.
Yeah, it's a really weird acquisition in the sense, like, I don't think anybody would have guessed that Yuke's would have the bandwidth to acquire Aquaplus. I don't know if they've actually mentioned a price on it. I think they did, but
it was like $7 million or something like that.
Yeah, like that seems like not a lot, I guess. But
I mean, Aquaplus themselves is a small
Yeah, that's true.
Because Utawa Ramono, all of those games have been outsourced for most of the development. So I mean, it makes sense. So
I just would think the valuation of Aquaplus would be higher, but I guess not. But
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel this is like $7 million. It's like pocket change for developers.
Yeah, I agree. But Yuke's, as you said, they've been working on WWE games from 2K14 all the way to 2K19. Then things happened behind the scenes between Yuke's and WWE to cancel off their partnership. They actually went to go on and eventually create the AEW Fight Forever that was released in 2023. So that's All Elite Wrestling's video game. After several delays, they've also worked on at least co-developing in development in some fashion some of the Earth Defense Force games like the Iron Rain and the World Brothers games, and they also have Double Dragon Revive coming this October. That's going to be developed by Yuke's as well in collaboration with Arc System Works Publishing. I don't like it. It definitely expands the portfolio of Yuke's by acquiring Aquaplus, and hopefully they give them the flexibility to and the resources to continue releasing their titles in the West. Hopefully that's still the case, because Yuke's does have a decent track record of releasing their stuff in the West. I guess the only selfishly the thing that I want is still White Album 2 on Steam.
The greatest VN, please.
So that's my one question. Like, how does this affect White Album 2's prospects of coming to Steam? Since the first one has been on Steam for 2 years now, and we've all been waiting still. So I guess that's my remaining question on that end.
They can't release it because they'll know they lose a customer, because they know that I will buy every damn game just to support them, just to get the release of it. But if it comes out and I buy that, they got nothing to sell me on, so it's never coming.
Yeah, I do wonder how well the Two Heart remake actually did for them overall. I don't know, did it meet sales expectations? Was it over, under? They haven't released any data on that end on whether it met their internal expectations or not on that end. But
there was that Famitsu article about how many copies they sold, wasn't it? It was it pulled out decent numbers for a VN from what I recall, but I don't know.
I don't know if that's good or bad by their metrics. Yeah. So I really, really hope, I really, really want White Album 2 on Steam really bad. That's the long and short of it. I'm fiending for it. Please.
Praying for a
miracle. I just gotta worry. It's that's the exact style of VN that unfortunately Valve can be weird about, even if there's not any actual content like that. It's especially with the payment processor stuff going on. It's man, I hope that ends up happening.
Oh, what a world we live in.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, if there's any new updates on Aquaplus, our good buddy Aquaplus, we'll talk about it. But yeah, it's an interesting acquisition. That I definitely wasn't expecting Yuke to be the one to get them. That's for sure.
The next headline is about a game that you guys were able to talk about a little over a month ago. It's a relatively, it's a new game that you guys talked about when I was out. Wuchang Fallen Feathers. I'll have to lean on both Josh here because I know that you played it and reviewed it, and Chow here about an update to the game that has changed a whole lot of things in ways that I don't know if there's any precedent for in terms of an analog or a comparison to be like, this is like the time when, like, I don't know if there's anything like that for this update. So this is not something that we've covered up on our site. I'm linking to a document from PC Gamer, and there's others that have also covered it. So this is the headline that I'll just read. A PC Gamer uses, and then maybe I'll hand it off to Josh and Chow. Wuchang Fallen Feathers got a patch which messes the game's story all up, renders bosses technically unkillable, and changes like between the King and the Ming Dynasty, like what characters are allowed to die in the game. So
no one
Josh,
dies
it's not.
Yeah,
well,
I'll tee up the summary of it. So basically, God, this is such a weird story still. I first learned about this from on social media from Lance McDonald. And Lance is a cool dude. He's worked for like I think he used to work for 8-4 if it still does. And goes by Man Fight Dragon on social media. But basically pointed out there's a recent update to Wuchang Fallen Feathers last weekend, I believe. It's when it was implemented that did this typical like gameplay being more friendly to players side where it's like, hey, dodging is a bit easier. You do have like some, I believe it's like some invul frames when you get up, because a common complaint from people is like when you get knocked down in Wuchang, especially in bosses, it's especially punishing because bosses can basically like kick you for free and keep you locked down when you're trying to stand back up in Wuchang. I thought it was like a deliberate game design decision. I'm like, and some sort of weird, like, I kind of respect that, like, play better, try to avoid being in a situation like this. So that's how I kind of viewed it when I was going through the game. Like, I didn't really mind.
No, I thought it was pretty bad design because a lot of the bosses, you just get hit once and you're dead because you're just like, oh, you're stuck in the ground.
I get it for some people, yeah, but for me, I'm like, I'm kind of used to that for older games. So I'm like, I kind of fuck with it. But so this is kind of a weird thing. So we've talked about this game in the sense that like this takes place in the later Ming Dynasty, very turbulent, real historical period in China, and there are definitely some bosses in the game that are like were figures of historical significance during that time period. And in the game, you fight them, you kill them, story moves on. But apparently in this new update, they have made it so these bosses, when you beat them in battle, you don't kill them. You just quote unquote exhaust them. So they just kind of like get tired and be like, and you didn't kill them. There's like, yes, good fight. You've beaten me. You've bested me in battle. It is kind of like a weird change because like now this is like an example of like legit like censorship now in a video game, unlike the people who are like, oh, I can't see the vagina bones anymore, it's censorship. No, this is actually like,
this is like for kids, like I see their parachutes or sent to the Shadow Realm or whatever.
Right. Yeah, this one is like, this is because this is actually like try to cover your eyes to push forward government propaganda, like very straightforwardly for propaganda purposes. If you exist in the year 2025 and you're like a Ming loyalist, I guess, and I guess you can provide a little bit of a context here, Chow, on this. But before we get to that, like, I just want to say, like, it's beyond that. Like that they took out like the pray gesture from Wuchang that you learned from like a Portuguese Christian character in the game. There
were like missionaries, so you just kind of learn.
Yeah, exactly.
From it.
Right, and then like there's like a rebellion outbreak in chapter 4 of the game that like there's like hostile peasants that like are now non-hostile to the player. On that, so
people
like
say chapter 4 is basically the biggest change now that the game is piss easy in that area because you can't kill them and they can't hurt you. It's just like it feels like such a weird, like awkward change. And then even the general that you killed there is like now you don't kill them anymore. It's like oh. But people say this totally goes against the argument because these guys are rebels. They're technically traitors, right? So what? It's like the context is completely all messed up, right? So,
also, from what I can tell, like the whole point of the story of Wuchang is about how like nothing can last forever, and then it's like this. It's like
yeah, like you're trying to get over like what happened to your sister, trying to like accept like you're grieving over her and trying to move on from it. It's like there's actually like thematic relevance on like killing like these historically significant bosses in that game. Like that is it ties to the development of Wuchang as a character herself. And James, I saw this on your Blue Sky, but like a user on like install base basically summed it up. Like if you wanted to draw a parallel with Western history, there's like somebody making a game set in 1065 England, and Anglo-Saxon fanboys are getting really upset that you can't kill the Normans in it.
Yeah, that's exactly it in context.
Yeah, so Chad, like you mentioned before this podcast, there's like professional troll posters, like I guess in some section, like in the China player base, especially the negative reviews of this game. Like I want you to kind of expand upon that on your side of the spectrum because you have a more intimate familiarity of it.
So in China, when it comes to like censorship, it's like people are always worried what the government would think, right? If you can get the government into something and if they don't like it, your entire product would be canceled, right? So common trolls are usually what they do as like cancel culture is like they will make the subject sound so taboo and you're so offended and just bring the subject to the government. And people just don't want their material to be subject to the government, right? If the government reviews it and maybe they just find there's some kind of topics they don't like, your entire game could be completely canceled. And I feel like these are like these trolls trying to use that to their advantage to get their whole product canceled. It's almost like the payment processor process, right? You just talk about there's like these games that are portraying the thing that you don't like, you get their attention, and then the entire game gets canceled due to, some preemptive measures, right? So that's kind of like how I see it, right?
I don't know. Is this a good made up analogy where like in the West you had certain small groups of people arguing, saying things like the original Mass Effect was like a sex game for perverts or whatever, but no one took them seriously because like, yeah, it's nothing like that, dude. But in this case, like you can make a kind of an outlandish claim and it could actually cause problems.
Like this. Yeah, it's basically like that, and then it's like, if the government steps in and they look at it and they don't like it, the product could be entirely canceled, right? Like, I've seen some drama shows that were portraying the Tang dynasty, right? And later on, the show got completely canceled. You couldn't even find it on YouTube or whatever, and the show was fully made because there were some subjects that they didn't like in that show because of how they portray how incompetent the government was or something like that, right? And it's like stuff like that, right? And you just don't want the government to step in. That's kind of like the thing, right? It's like back then, like the video games being rated. It's like you don't want the government to step in about loot box, right?
The thing that's crazy about this is that Wuchang is not officially available in China, right?
I don't think so.
I believe you can get it in Taiwan, and then there's other places, but that's.
I thought it was available there, but that's also because there's like it gets a lot of Chinese reviews. That's like kind of like my line of think. But I don't actually know like what the availability is over there. But there's enough like negative reviews from people who at least are submitting reviews in Chinese on Steam.
When the game was first out, there was a lot of these negative review on Steam talking about how you can't kill people from the Manchu ethnicity. It was all like Han people, and people were like reading those posts as like trolls, right? But it looked like they actually took those troll posts seriously, and now it's like we're seeing the repercussions of that, right?
I understand the performance issues, but like but for the ones that are like trying to say, oh, this like the this portrays the time period in a way that like I don't like. It's that becomes like kind of a weird area that you're. It's kind of Lindsay games have kind of found themselves like in a weird situation because they released a patch that satisfies no one. You pissed off like obviously a player base now of like you've legit censored the game, and two, even for those like troll posters, like you've upset like it's still not enough for them. Like it's like you still didn't go far enough. We're not satisfied. If you it's like even for the small player base that you're catering to with this patch, you still kind of fucked yourself. Like it's not enough for them. So.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me that I had like an interaction with this like really, really xenophobic Japanese man my last time I was in Japan, talking about like the demographics of China, and then finding out that that's absolutely a thing that happens in China too. And it's like, what the hell?
Crazy, man. So I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna backpedal on this position or on this decision, or they're just gonna let it rock. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. Best of luck to that studio, I guess, because now you've really pissed off a lot of people now. Like this is actual case study, legit example of censorship in a video game.
I think they're basically screwed themselves over with this patch. Really, like they should have just stuck with their guns and just did nothing, right? But I guess they were just paranoid. Yeah, I think they were just scared. It's like they were like this company was catering to every single fan feedback from gameplay changes, performance to those everything. It's like they're listening to every single voices.
I will say though that I'm with that context, I'm actually not surprised that they did something rash like this without thinking, because even with the performance, part of what has improved performance has actually been changing the resolution scale for the presets, and also for a certain amount of time forcing it where even if you set the resolution scale to 100%, the game would lie to you and would still have it at like DLSS quality. So
yeah, and that's kind of like I kind of feel bad in that sense for these developers. Like obviously this is like their first like debut game, and like they just I'm sure they don't have like the technical know-how to like immediately fix this and kind of set that as like a panic response. That's how I view it in my head, but that doesn't excuse them of like making that decision at all. It's just like they probably have their hands full trying to figure out the technical performance of optimizing that, and now they have this new issue on their hands of like man.
I mean, Wuchang did get a huge peak on Steam, probably due to the Chinese player base. I was just looking like Lies of P and Kazan both peaked at like 30,000. And I know this is just like the one data point we have. Like, I know people say like the value of Steam charts is hard to like fully gauge in terms of like, what about console or concurrent player base doesn't tell you the whole story. But just relatively speaking, like Wuchang found an audience on Steam because it was, covering like a market and an era that other studios weren't. We kind of saw the same thing with Wukong, kind of being a success in the area. And now this just feels like you had a good thing going. Sure, it was they had the technical issues that I wish like the one downside was just technical issues, but now it's like, well, can I somehow play pre-patch 1.5 if I want to actually have a story that makes sense and not have weird like balance issues just to appease this super minority fringe group? It's just unfortunate for those that like haven't played it yet. It's like a compromised product now at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like it's just like it's not necessarily like I still wouldn't recommend the game to people in terms of like you want a fun action game that has pretty challenging combat, but now just like now you just have like weird concessions. It's like just keep in mind, like the developers did weird shit to this game.
Yeah, it's a little different saying like, well, pre-nerf Kazan, Malika was a more difficult boss than what you're going to get now versus now the story. If you play Wuchang now, the story doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, like you can still play Kazan and just have like the same story that was there on launch. Like you don't have to worry about that. But now it's like Wuchang's like this is a totally different story now.
Yeah.
Weird. Like
PC Gamer put an image in their game where it's literally you go to I presume this is like a boss character. It's like, don't worry, they're sleeping. Like you didn't kill them. Don't worry about it. But yeah, Wuchang Fallen Feathers, and like I said, there's really no direct point of comparison because this is a pretty unique set of circumstances that I don't know if we. It'd be interesting to follow this to see if this is the end of the story, if this is just how it is, or what. I honestly have no idea.
I think I've seen this thing happening with like TV shows in Chinese culture, but not in the actual like video game. At least not to this scale, right? I guess they still want the product out, so they try to do all these compromises. But this is not. I don't think this is the answer to it.
The only thing that I can think of that I've heard about, but not having actually played the Chinese version of any of these games, is that in order to release a game in China, there are certain. I've heard the skeletons have to be presented a very specific way, things like that, and like I know Guild Wars 2 when they released a Chinese client, it couldn't have crossplay with the rest of the world client for some of those things. So I've heard about it in like that context, but not like a release game getting an unannounced shifting update like this for all regions is what I think what makes this different. Just weird. But yeah, of course, if there's anything to follow up on, we definitely will, just because it's an interesting story to follow, even if it's an unfortunate one. A couple other smaller updates here for some currently released games before we go into kind of like the sales and release dates rundown. Kite also did put up an article about Persona 5 with Phantom X, talking about upcoming changes to the global versions, the recent Japanese and Western releases compared to the original China, Southeast Asia releases. Can you parse this down for us quickly, Josh, about the proposed changes for the recently released versions of Persona 5 the Phantom X?
Yeah, based on changes of the original China, Korea, Taiwan servers on that end, the upcoming changes for Japan, global and Southeast Asia. So this is kind of like a weird one because there's definitely I've seen enough of these to feel like okay, they're almost in panic mode now, where the people who are running the global release, Japanese release of P5X are like, if you have a lengthy letter like this that you state on public, that means they're panicking behind the scenes because
this reminds me of the statement that Tribe 9 made right before,
yeah. So basically they're starting to acknowledge some of the things that people have have been complaining about on this. And a lot of this is kind of trying to put wool over the eyes of these players, because a lot of these things have already been implemented as rewards in the previous China, Taiwan, Korea server. For example, they're because of these changes, we're awarding the players will be able to obtain 20 platinum tickets and 20 platinum millicoins at version 2.0, on this, trying to make it seem like there's a new thing for these servers when that was the exact same reward, obtainable rewards that was happening in other servers. They're trying to phrase that as something that we're introducing here for the Japanese global and global servers. No, you've already done that before to other servers. You aren't gonna fool people like this. But for things like the many weeks ago when I was talking about this game, the 110 guaranteed 5-star banner that came about 6 months into the lifespan of the older servers, they're starting to gesture that they're gonna implement this earlier in the Japanese and global server. And it's and it's such vague language that you don't know exactly what that means. It probably means it's gonna be it won't be, we won't have to wait 6 months into the lifespan of this game for that better banner type to be introduced. But because of the accelerated nature of this, maybe it's just a consequence of because that banner was introduced at this patch 2.3 that came at 6 months at the older servers. Maybe patch 2.3 will be coming here at month 4 of the game due to acceleration. That's what they meant. But we're introducing it earlier here. It's still coming at the same patch number, but because of the accelerated nature of the game, it's just now here earlier. So that's supposed to be a better thing. We introduced it earlier in the West. It's okay, maybe it's because of acceleration that you kind of did that. I also detailed about the whole Minami situation at an earlier podcast episode that I won't, re-explain here, but they addressed that here, and they're oh, because we introduced it was implemented earlier than the older servers. We're gonna try to do a make good with another way to obtain these. It's basically, here's the thing, they created problems for themselves, and now they're trying to introduce solutions for the problems that they solved, and they're trying to pass it off as a good thing because of like we've are now introducing solutions to problems that we made ourselves, essentially. Which is, I guess, great, maybe. But the only substantial thing out of all of this that's like good for people who are playing on the Japanese and global servers of P5X that wasn't originally implemented in the older server is there's a system called tasks in the game that will eventually be implemented on version 2 that hasn't come out yet. And this was a way to get these shards for characters to get like a dupe of them. So let's say you have Anne from Persona 5 and you want to get a dupe of them to increase that character's power, but you don't want to like roll duplicates of them and waste resources to get duplicates of them to power them up. They introduced shards, the earnable shards that you do through this task system, and when you obtain 60 of them, you can exchange them for a dupe of Anne without actually rolling on the gacha for a dupe of her to enhance her. So it's a way to do an activity to gain resources that eventually you'll have enough resources to combine them together to get a dupe of her without rolling the banner to get a dupe of her. And Anne is like a standard permanent character that you can roll at any time. She's not a limited character. But now, and this system was only for standard non-limited characters, from what I understand. But now, when they implement this system into Japanese and global servers, you'll be able to obtain duplicates of some limited characters like Joker, like Minami, like Yusuke from Persona, and Makoto from Persona 5. You'll be able to obtain duplicates of them with these shards on this new system, unlike the older servers where you wouldn't be able to use this system for those characters, those limited characters. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Like, that's what the actual new thing is that benefits Japanese and global servers. Everything else is like, it's been implemented in older servers, but they're now trying to like repackage it as like and reword it as like this is something great and new for these these younger servers. It's somewhat of a step in the right direction, but it's also, you can tell that this letter was made in response of like the number going down continually.
Yeah, it's like this seems good, but it also seems maybe desperate's too strong a word, but leaning in that direction.
Right.
Is that the right way to put it?
I would say so. Yeah. So I don't think this will necessarily improve the situation for people on the inside, and I definitely don't think this is convincing new people to give this game a shot again if they've already left or going into it for the first time. I don't think it'll reignite the population that the way that they really wanted to. I think it's just like it feels like it's I don't know if it's too late, but it definitely won't turn their fortunes around, at least at this point in time. I think people are just getting fed up. And this negative atmosphere and the message of that game, even to outsiders, like, it's enough for people to be like, oh, okay, I shouldn't play this game because I hear so many bad things about it. And I think that's the general sentiment, by and large, of this game. Which I still play this game every day to do dailies and stuff. I still enjoy it, the gameplay, but I definitely wouldn't recommend it. And I don't blame anyone for not giving this game a shot because of all the negative stuff they've heard about it. I'm like, no, stay away from this game, dude. You don't want this shit on you. So who knows? I personally, I hope that this game's numbers continues to fall until the publisher and the developers, whoever's running these servers, like, tries to genuinely do a make good on it. And I don't know how many obstacles you have to overcome behind the scenes internally to make that happen, but I hope it continues to like fall and until they finally just try to genuinely make it a better product, because right now it's It's bad, especially very bad.
When does 2.0 launch, or has it already?
It has not launched in here. I think it's coming sometime in September. I want to say. I think
September.
It's sometime.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, sometime in September, I imagine.
Let's see. Past that, we've got a few game announcements here and some platform announcements. This is one that we've mentioned in passing. This is one of the games that Owlcat is publishing now, as a role now as a publisher. This is Rue Valley. If you don't remember, this is one that's very much a Disco Elysium like down to its perspective and art style. They've announced that Rue Valley is going to not only come to PC, but it'll come to all consoles. Switch, well, not Switch 2, just a Switch version, which will be playable at Switch 2, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. And in addition to the fact that, okay, it's coming out on other platforms, the studio, Emotion Spark Studio, talked a little bit here in a press release about kind of some of the themes of the game, which I had missed this when this game was first announced. They're partnering with a group called Movember, which is kind of like a men's health advocacy group, like in terms of like men's emotional health, the usefulness of therapy, things like that, the loneliness epidemic. And they talk about that those inspire the themes of the game, you know, how they see gaming as a safe space, how one man dies of suicide every minute. We believe that platforms like gaming can provide safe environments for people to explore their mental health struggles, things like that. So I read that, and that's not a typical paragraph that you read in a gaming press release. So they are unabashedly kind of forwarding that as what this game is thematically about. So, and Disco Elysium did also kind of touch on those things too. Of course, these are different studios, different parts of the world, but it feels genuine to me. Of course, proof is in the pudding, but I read that and like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. That makes me more interested in this game because it is something kind of different. Still no release window, but and there wasn't any new announcement trailer or anything with this, but it's an announcement of the platforms for Rue Valley, as well as talking about partnering with the Movember advocacy group. Two other indie announcements here, very different styles of games. This first one is a monochromatic first-person dungeon crawler called The Secret of Weepstone. I feel like there was another game that we announced that we talked about within the last 3 years that was similar to this. So very traditional blobber sort of game with like an art style that, like Mad World is the game that comes to mind, even though it's a very different style of game, similar-ish art style in terms of being completely monochromatic, being almost cell shaded in a way, in the way that the things animate and how they look in terms of giving you depth perception. So we have an announcement trailer for that. Just a quick minute on that. Slated to come out this year for PC. It looks like a game for the Grimlock kind of grognards. That sort of those nerds, I say endearingly.
I think I don't have it in front of me, but I think they say they're inspired specifically by 80s D&D.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I missed that. That's interesting that they gave like a time period. But it really cool look to the game. I definitely want to see it in action. But they definitely they did a great job, like just creating a style that catches your eye immediately. You're like, oh shit.
I did misspeak on one thing. On our little sidebar, it says to be announced 2025. At the end of the press release, it says full launch with 2026 for PC. So 2026, which makes more sense. Yeah. Speaking of Gothic likes, we have another game that is explicitly calling out Gothic as an influence. This is another indie RPG from Mysteria Studio called Asterfel. Open world RPG, single player, inspired by early 2000s classics such as Gothic, an open world with 3 factions to encounter, which again, I'm like, I haven't played Gothic, but that sounds like Elex, sort of thing. Boss Baby vibes or whatever. The trailer is, it looks very early in terms of like, it's a sort of game where like, it almost looks like it could have come out around the same time as Gothic, but in terms of like, I'm not judging it, I'm just describing it in that sense where it's like, it looks kind of, it's an indie project sort of thing. They show melee combat, they show spell casting. The press release for it is a lot of the sorts of things that we typically see when games are first announced, like trying to sell your game as quickly as possible. They're like, choose your own fate. The world is your oyster. 3 factions, a nation divided. The factions, I guess, are the Crown Wardens, which are are loyal to the king, the scholars, who are mages, as well as the kindred, a group of rebels. So there you go. It looks interesting enough, but I'd have to see more, I think, because it does also kind of look like I've seen this before. No release date, no anything like that, but they got a Steam page. They have an initial announcement trailer, and I'll keep my eye on it. A few updates for some previously announced games. Mina the Hollower. This is a game from Yacht Club Games that's kind of like, to me, it looks like GBA Zelda, more Game Boy Color Zelda, only with a little bit more of like Hyper Light Drifter DNA to it. It's coming out to Nintendo Switch 2 alongside PC, and a demo is now available. It's releasing on October 31st for PC and consoles.
I think it has a Switch 1 version also, and this was something we're actually slightly confused about. I think they have said in the past they want to do PlayStation and Xbox versions, but I don't think there's anything that explicitly says those are releasing at the same time. It's just Steam, Switch, and Switch 2 right now, I think.
That's all I see, yeah. We'll update if we see
I guess
else.
that makes sense. That was the same thing they did with, say, Shovel Knight. They released on PC and Nintendo consoles first, and then did PlayStation and Xbox later.
See, Caves of, how do you pronounce this? QUD? Quud? Cud? Cud?
Caves of Cud, yeah.
Cud. Caves of Cud is coming to Nintendo Switch in Q4 of this year. It's already out on PC. Genshin Impact. There's kind of a different little headline here. Will no longer get updates on PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4 basically is being no longer supported. It'll be delisted on September 10th, and future updates will only be on PS5 and PC.
Yeah, it got an end of service notice
and Xbox Series. I forgot about Xbox on that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, definitely. I guess it's definitely time to go. Like anytime you talk to people who still play Genshin Impact on PS4, they just say the performance on that game is just freaking rough with all the recent updates. Like it's chugging along at like 20 FPS on average on that system, and their system is just like, oh, please help me, stop making me run this game. It's obviously still going to be available on PS5, Xbox Series, PC, and mobile devices, but the PS4 version, and they just can't continue to support that. Obviously, with the PS4 player base gradually dwindling, whether they're going to other platforms, whether they upgraded to PS5 or are just starting to play more on PC or mobile devices, it's just they don't want to continue allocating resources for it. So as you mentioned, they're going to remove it from the PS Store for PS4 on September 10th, and then they'll finally like sunset that game fully on PS4 the end of February next year, just fully. So they're just giving people decent heads up, give them time to, if they're still using PS4 as their primary way to play that game, start looking into other ways to continue playing it.
Yeah. And we've seen similar things before, like with Final Fantasy 14 stopped supporting PS3. I think Elder Scrolls Online had a similar thing. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, this happens. This is a kind of a thing that happens.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. This one I did not read into, but we talked about the Nioh 3 announcement back in, when was that? In June, and it had its like little alpha demo at the same time that Kite kind of reported on. And Kite, what he basically put up on the site was the feedback from sorry, let me reword it. When players were solicited to give their feedback back to Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja from the demo, they then published the results of that feedback. So this is just usually like, what did you think of this? Positive, average, or negative, including like, how would you rate the graphics? How would you rate the music? Did you enjoy ninja style? Did you enjoy samurai style? So I don't know if there's a lot to dive into here, other than if you look at the pretty simple survey results here, almost everything is like roughly 80% positive, 10% average, 10% negative in terms of like, what do you think of the graphics? What do you think of this? Except for the question about difficulty. How would you rate the difficulty? Negative 32%. I wonder if that means too hard.
I heard it was very, very difficult at some parts of it. Like there are definitely some boss encounters that a lot of people are like, "Oh, this is a lot." So I definitely see that negative as like, hey, people got pretty stomped at a certain point. Like I heard it was a pretty difficult alpha demo, but it's normal. Like
the Nioh 1 alpha demo was notoriously like rough.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. But it's interesting to see where people have landed on, because this new Nioh is a pretty interesting departure from prior Nioh games in terms of like, this new samurai style and ninja style. So you'll be able to like use the armaments of like the samurai style, or just like the samurai focus builds and ninja focus builds, but all in one character seamlessly now in Nioh 3. But the way that they segregated like ninjutsu, where you have to kind of go into this distinct ninja style to utilize those armaments from the get-go, instead of like having to like do like a hybrid style thing in prior Nioh games. So I think that the people generally felt pretty positive on that. I think there could be tweaks here and there. As Kite mentioned, one of the more noticeable things that they addressed in this demo, more specifically gameplay wise, is that there are crucibles in that game where people would take life corrosion, so like their maximum health would go down when they take damage. And it got pretty brutal, because the more you took damage in it, the more that your maximum health would dwindle in these crucibles. So in the full game, they'll allow you to recover your maximum life limit using elixirs and other with effects from the Jizo blessings. And that's although crucibles will be more manageable. You don't have to play like super perfectly hitless runs in that. You won't be too super punished on that. But yeah, in general, Team Ninja will continue to make adjustments based on player feedback from people who played the alpha demo, and that's kind of what makes these Nioh games work. Is they continually they get out like a slice of that game early for people to get their hands on, and then based on what they hear, they're gonna try to make the game even better and better. So really looking forward to Nioh 3, especially because this one will have a simultaneous PC release alongside its console release, which is
I just hope it's more like the Dynasty Warriors Origin PC version, and less like almost every other Koei Tecmo PC port,
including Ryza the Ronin.
Yeah.
So come on, Team Ninja, please.
For once, a good PC port. For once.
Yeah, even Stranger of Paradise, suffered because they kind of went ham on the polygon.
Okay, to be fair, with Stranger of Paradise, that wasn't a bad PC port. That was just bad optimization across the board.
Yeah, but it was funny in the way that it was misoptimized. Everyone got a kick of like, this is the reason why it's running like this. Like, oh my god! When you took a peek under the hood, it's like, yeah, goddamn.
You shave all the NPCs and you gain 10 FPS, unironically.
Yes. Very, very amusing. So yeah, I mean, Nioh 3 is still on track for a release sometime next year.
One quick trailer update for Digimon Story Time Stranger. Of course, the long-awaited new Digimon Story game releasing in early October. They had Benny Namco had just a very quick trailer called "Who Will You DigiRide With?" This is Digimon that can basically, these are the Digimon that you can effectively ride as a mount, like a MMO style mount. And then I don't know if this list was provided or if Kite just put it all together.
Kite was like, "I'm going beast mode."
So Kai put together a list based on the like 1 minute long trailer, all the Digimon that are shown being ridden. And depending on the type of Digimon, it's kind of fun. Like some like those that are like four-legged creatures you ride on the back, those that are like Yetis will just carry you on their shoulder. And Kai put together the whole list of everything that was at least shown in the trailer. We don't know if that's comprehensive the entire game, but yeah, just a fun little trailer about if you partner with the Digimon, they can carry you across the game.
Yeah, there was an unfortunate I guess like card, like the use cards that you get on your mobile device. I guess I don't know which platform this was, but there's an unfortunate use card for this game because it has It has Bandai Namco, new update. And then the message is like, get in, agent. We're going to the digital world. Hop on your Digimon's back, shoulder, and then cock, see more. And that was that's where it stopped. It's like, everyone's like, wait a minute, huh? And that's supposed to be Cockpit, because like for some of the robot, you go into
or tanks or whatever,
yeah. And but it decided to cut off at cock right there. So it's like, what did Bandai Namco mean by this? So that was probably the most amusing thing to come out of this story. Like it's an awesome trailer, like having so many different Digimon that you can use in this game as a mount to kind of just ride around, increase your movement speed, and like depending on like the anatomy of the Digimon, the way that like you mount them is different. But having your news card be, hey, you can hop on your Digimon's back, shoulder, and cock. It's like, all right, okay, sure.
This combined with beating off earlier, this is an interesting episode.
Thematically consistent. All right, we're approaching the 3-hour mark. We're at sales. We're at release dates. So let's rattle through this and wrap this up. For our 2 sales updates, these are kind of the 2 different flavors of sales update. We have one that is an early access release. Titan Quest 2, of course, under THQ Nordic, has sold 300,000 copies within 3 days after releasing on early access. So clearly, this is like kind of a fervent fan base that has been waiting for this, that doesn't mind the early access tag. They've jumped in at 300,000 copies. So clearly, something that THQ Nordic has been excited about. And then
that's
the
an impressive
second
number,
sales,
genuinely, yeah.
yeah,
Because I really loved like the first Titan Quest, but that released like ages ago. That like it's cool to see that like, hey, there's still a lot of fans who really love the Titan Quest IP, and them going up to the start is good. I wonder. I don't know if I'll just wait till the 1.0 launch for this one, but it's cool to see because I really love the first Titan Quest a lot.
And then the second one is similarly exciting, but go ahead.
Back to Titan Quest. This is just a pet peeve of mine that I wanted to air my grievances. No Sorry. I saw so many articles. I hate this. We don't do it at RPG site, and I would not allow it. But there are so many articles that do the thing where they just refuse the name of the game, where they would talk about this Titan Quest sales, and they'd be like, PC Diablo-like reaches new milestone, or like early access CRPG hits high numbers or whatever. And it's just like, come on, just say it. Titan Quest hits 300,000. Like, come on.
That's annoying. Yeah, I haven't seen those. That's really irritating when I see them, though. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm definitely with you.
If you want to see headlines that just say it how it is, you should follow RPG site on social media. Well, it'll say in the headline, Titan Quest sells over 300,000 copies. And then if you want to read more, you can click it and read more. There you go.
Yeah, that's a bullet point for our site. We put the name of the game on the headline. That's crazy.
Yep. And then for the other sales update, this is a game that had a demo at Steam Next Fest back in the early summer and then just released in the first week of August. The game is Artis Impact, ARTIS Impact. And this game sold over 10,000 units on Steam within 24 hours. And then after hitting that milestone, the solo developer who goes by Moss, M-A-S, is basically like, wow, I'm at a loss for words. This is a little project that I've been working on by myself for over 5 years. The fact that it has sold 10,000 is blowing my mind. And it's just cool to see that. And not only that, Moss is already saying like, I see the bugs, I see the suggestions, I'm working on continuing to support this game. So it's just heartwarming to see someone like excited that their game has found an audience, even if, in the context of everything else, you might look at 10,000 and it might seem quaint, but to Moss, they're like, wow, this is blowing all of my expectations out of the water. This is insane.
Smaller smoke games, like this is a big deal because I think about like the creator Balatro, his expectations for the game was like, I only expected this game to only sell to like my closest friends and family members, and like they like maybe sell like 5 copies between them. When they were talking about like the production of that game. So like them Moss seeing this sort of success. Like I remember I talked about like the demo of that game when it was on Steam Next Fest, and like it being kind of, I feel like it got overshadowed. Like not a lot of people were talking about it, or like maybe just they didn't see it or whatever. I was really impressed with it, and like I'm genuinely like feel good. Like I feel great that like Moss is seeing this level of success, because like when I played that game, I was like, man, this seems like a special game. This has like a really cool game on their hands, and now like I really, really want to play this game and write a review for it on the site. But it's also they have this update roadmap. Like, okay, when should I play this game? 'Cause I want to play this game like when it's like a pretty polished state. Because like I'm sure it's like fantastic already and driven by these titles, but like I want to play like a really great version of this game now, taking feedback from people who played it already. So like I'm definitely have this on my list to play. I just don't know when I'm gonna get around to it because I know I will really like this game when I play it, and that's just genuinely cool to see. Like, hey, good job, you knocked it out of the park. Genuinely very happy developer.
With that, we'll go into release dates. Kaiju number 8, the game, will be launching on PC and mobile platforms at the end of the month on August 31st.
This is a weird one too. We mentioned this earlier with hey, this sounds like the Tribe 9 announcement with the Persona 5 Phantom X, but Kaiju number 8, the game, is from the developers of Tribe 9 with the Akatsuki games.
Yeah, yep.
It's also a weird one to do like mobile focus. I mean, there's also releasing on PC via Steam, but also on mobile devices. We'll also have a gacha system, obviously, but it's kind of like a weird one because it's for a property that's like it's decently popular over in Japan. I'm not sure about how popular it is in the West, and also like just the available pool of characters is like not that much. There'll be some original characters here and there, and also the story of this like the manga like recently wrapped up for Kaiju number 8, and people are kind of, let's say, lukewarm about the way it ended. I won't say how it ended, but people generally feel lukewarm. So like, it's kind of like in a weird spot of like I just don't know how well this game will do based on like the recent track record of this developer, plus kind of like I wouldn't say that this is like the most popular IP out there compared to like Jujutsu Kaisen or One Piece or obviously Persona even. So it's just I don't know. Good luck, I guess. I mean, I watched the TV show. I genuinely like the TV show. So
I've actually seen the first season. I was actually looking. I didn't realize the second season had started this summer. But I had heard like the first season was received pretty well. But I had heard people who had known the manga say, well, the first season's the best content. It kind of goes down from here. And so, but they're like, well, maybe the anime will improve on it. Like, obviously we hope that it's good, but we'll see.
I remember people said the same thing about Promise Neverland.
No, don't remind me. Don't remind me. Season 2 never happened. Just watch the first season. Nothing else. It started and stopped there.
Couple of the release dates. We mentioned this one in passing earlier. Demonschool, which has been long in the works, does have a release date on September 3rd, coming out in under a month. Yeah. Really excited.
I hope it's awesome. It's been kind of been cooking for a long time, but I hope that the final release is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mandragora, Whispers of the Witch Tree, a game that Adam covered back when it released on PC in April, is launching for Nintendo Switch on September 4th.
This is one of those games where they've updated it a bunch since I reviewed it, and I know some of the things I criticized were like addressed. Not, it's not gonna like change the game's identity or whatever, but it's probably better than what it was when I played it.
It's always a surreal feeling that like you'll know what I mean with this, Adam. But like when like you release a review and then like post-launch updates like feels like it almost invalidates your review because like what's the usefulness of my review? Like with my Wuchang review, for example, or my Kazan review, it's like those games have undergone so many drastic changes post-launch. It's like I feel like my initial thoughts on the launch date of those games. It's like, man, I don't know who's this helping these days now with how those games have changed.
Hike Northern Lights will launch on. We knew it was a summer launch. They just barely squeezed it in. Will launch on September 18th. Technically still summer. For PlayStation 5, Switch, and Steam.
I will give this game a shot. It looks awesome. It looks really cute, and I'm interested. I hope it's awesome.
Cladun X3, I think I'm pronouncing that right, will launch for PC, PS5, PC, PlayStation 4 and 5, and Nintendo Switch on September 26th. It originally launched in Japan in February this year.
Yeah, man, that's not a great time to release that with everything coming out like that week of
late
September.
Yeah.
I know there's like something else that's major for us that's coming out on the 25th. I forget what it is specifically. Is it Borderlands 4?
No, Borderlands 4 is Trails. Those are earlier in September.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm looking because now I'm interested. It's like around the 20th.
Trails is the 19th. Atelier Res Luriana is the 26th. Final Fantasy Tactics is 30th.
There it is.
Final
Fantasy Tactics and Atelier. That makes sense.
Yep. And I kind of speak on a similar vein here. This is for one of the other Falcon projects that had picked up a publisher for a global launch. This is East versus Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga that was going to be published by a new studio, Refint Games. They were planning to get a summer launch for the global or like the localized release of East versus Trails in the Sky, but they've announced that they need to delay it for a few months for some they say situations outside of their control. They want to reassess the release schedule, make necessary adjustments. So they are going to push back the delay. I'm trying to see if they announced any details because it didn't have a specific date. They just said summer. After careful consideration, we're going to delay the game by a few months. So fall, I suppose. So we didn't have a date, but they're just saying, hey, it needs a little bit more time. So be patient with us. Hopefully still this year.
Hey, take all the time you need. Hopefully, like at least it's in a great state. Like personally, like I hope the netcode, like I know they already announced rollback, but I hope like the netcode's like really good, just like when that game is out there, because it's kind of fun to just goof around with friends and other people. Like just it's not a game that's meant to be taken seriously. It's kind of more like a party game, type of deal. Yeah, but it's a simple fun time. Like, and I'd like to play that game with others.
The enigma of a game, Crimson Desert, the everything RPG. I feel like I don't know why.
They don't want to call it an RPG.
Whatever. The forever game, Crimson Desert, was supposed to launch at some point this year. It has been moved back to 2026.
Two of us have seen this game in front of our eyes being played, and one of us has actually had hands on.
Yeah,
and actually
Adam talked about the controls for this, right? How you have to like plant the banner by pressing 18 buttons on your controller.
Yeah, but it's not all bad. I think some of the comboing could be cool in concept, like button inputs for that. But it's definitely like unusual and took some getting used to.
Especially when going to a demo cold, like here,
right?
Like
just put a controller in your hand and like now you have 100 enemies chasing you. Like, oh shoot, what do I do? So
that moment, like you're just running around and like all this whole army in the night chasing you, and everything's blowing up around you. I was like, this game's sick, actually. And yeah, they said the reasons for the delay to 2026. Like they really tried to make this year, like especially like during our appointment, when we were checking out Summer Game Fest, they really like were stressing like they're trying to get it out this year. But due to their multiple partners for offline distribution, voiceovers, console certification, and other stuff, they just had to push it back to Q1 of next year. So I know people are like kind of rolling their eyes, like this game has seen numerous delays again and again. So hopefully this is the final delay. Hopefully.
I'm not a YouTube person, but I was looking up. So they released some gameplay footage recently, and I was trying to find it on YouTube. So I just Googled like Crimson Desert on YouTube or searched it. And the very first thing I saw is probably a popular YouTuber, I don't know, was like, Crimson Desert has been downgraded, ? With the big red text and whatever. Like from its, earlier showcases or whatnot, when, how many times do you believe like the graphics in a debut trailer are like real gameplay? Like, come on. But they were, I'm guessing, like, when you actually see the gameplay in action, is it going to look as pretty and as perfect as it does like in the debut? Probably not.
And even if it does, like you need more context where it's like where we originally showed it, it performs terribly because we have too many polygons in every character's beard, so we had to downgrade it, sort of thing. So like, there's more context.
Like when you actually create the game that has to go underneath it, there's so many things that are going to be variable from announcement to release, right? So it's going to change.
But did you ever consider that's not punchy enough, and you need clicks and you need the view count to monetize your video?
I apologize that our coverage of games is boring. We put the game in the headline.
Here's footage. Here's a trailer. Here's gameplay.
There you go. And then the last announcement we have is a recent Idea Factory compile heart announced title. Calamity Angels Special Delivery was originally slated to release in the summer. They've announced in a very quick message that it's being pushed back to 2026. They did not give any details. They just said it's been moved back. We'll give more details and releases later. So
also
Calamity Angels
for the Japanese release or just the English release? I didn't keep up on this, or if they still have the Japanese release slated for summer 2025, or if it's just the English release. I have no idea. If it's just the English release, then maybe it's just like the Japanese is still on track for summer 2025.
Yeah, it doesn't say it explicitly, but reading between the lines, because they originally said that they're planning to launch in the summer. Hopefully, the dates are the same or close. This announcement says, as previously announced, Calamity Angels was scheduled to release physically and digitally in North America and Europe this summer. The release window has now been moved back to 2026. So seems to maybe only be affecting the Western release. Though they don't say it, it's like all but said. It's if you read between the lines, that's what it's saying.
Is there a popular YouTuber that says this game's been downgraded?
Maybe in Japan.
This game released in Japan already.
Oh,
did it?
Okay, I didn't know that.
June 26th for Switch and PS5.
Yeah, I've heard no one talk about it because I've heard no one pick it up. I didn't know.
Because the last time we covered it on our site, which is of course an English-facing site, we just said it's going to launch in the summer across all regions. So it sounds like that was able to be true for Japan, June, but just not made true for the Western release. So we're going to get it next year. But good catch.
Yeah.
So a few things being pushed back to 2026. That always happens this time of year for games big and small like Calamity Angels or Crimson Desert. And that's it for this episode. So obviously it was good to be back with everyone. For taking a 2-week break or a 1 week, 2 weeks between episodes, this was actually pretty normal. It always stinks when you come back after a 2-week break and there's just mountains and mountains of stuff to cover. This one felt tackleable. So still a 3-hour podcast before a 2-week break. Not the worst outcome that could have happened. So we were able to catch up on some games that we've been playing in our backlog or anticipation of future releases, like Josh's time revisiting some Super Robot Wars games. And then as for next week, I don't think next week, like I kind of mentioned, we have a few people working on some games in the background that we can already talk about at a preview cadence, but not at a full cadence. So starting next week or the week after, we'll be able to talk about those. And we've already gone in detail about the September schedule, how it ramps up from there, as it does every year. So, of course, if you made it to the... Oh, go ahead.
The thing that's happening this week, obviously, is going to be Gamescom opening night live, and they've already, at least in terms of RPGs, there's already confirmed, there's going to be like a new thing for Black Myth Wukong they're showing off, a trailer for the Fallout Amazon show, season 2 of that. They already teased Lords of the Fallen 2.
Yeah, I was just about to say they heavily implied
I did
Lords
see
of the
that,
Fallen 2.
yeah.
Yeah, Outer Worlds 2 will be there, and stuff. So there'll definitely be stuff, that will be for us next podcast episode. Depending on what they show off at the Gamescom opening night live, they already said it's gonna be a 2-hour show. So, well, most of us will be at work here in the States, so I'll probably just catch up on it when I go home.
Obviously, if you made it to the end of this podcast, thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. Hopefully, if you made it to the end, that means anything we've done on the back end for hosting the podcast has worked out seamlessly and flawlessly. But of course, if you haven't already, let us know. Give us a comment, give us a message, reach out, and we'll address it as soon as we can. You can follow us on all social media networks. Just search for RPG Space Site on Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, all of those, and you should be able to find us. Join our Discord, discord.gg/RPG Site. If you like this podcast, give it a like, give it a rating, whether it's on the site page itself or on your podcast service of choice. We'd love to see those. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. So thank you all, as always, so much for listening. And we'll see you next time. Stay safe. Take care.